I played a couple of simulators, and this was like very responsive, especially the hydraulics and stuff, the motion and stuff was really, really on point.
But you feel like you're really driving, it feels real.
It adds so much to the experience. It's just really, really cool.
It was pretty awesome.
3 years ago, there was an idea for a young super speedway racing promotion named Pacey Gray Racing to host a marquee event in the middle of the summertime. It would take its usual weekly drivers and offer a larger prize pool than the series had ever seen. That race drew 60 drivers, a full field, and was one of the wildest and most chaotic races in series history. And it was so successful that the next year, series promoters wanted to go one step further. A full-length, elimination-style, marquee event that took up an entire weekend of time. And thus, the biggest sim racing event of the summer was born. Now, in August of 2026, the field convenes once again in virtual Talladega, but this time it shatters yet another record, as PGR brings its largest field ever for the biggest sim racing event of the summer to the high banks of Talladega Superspeedway. This week, it begins the third annual PGR eSports SummerSlam 499. We wish you a good evening and welcome to virtual Lincoln, Alabama for opening night of the SummerSlam 499. As we get into proceedings here tonight, we first want to take an opportunity to talk about those that support PGR eSports but have been able to help put this event on throughout the week. We, of course, start with our title sponsor in That Towing Company and Chris Blanchard, a loyal supporter of PGR over the years. Chris Blanchard returns once again to support this event. I want to thank Chris and all the folks at That Towing Company. Also to Chris Carter and CCR, as well as the Flying Aces and the Flying Aces TV. You'll see them represented on multiple cars throughout the week, starting in tonight's opening heat race. Specifically for tonight's opening heat race, I want to thank James Waring and JWR, James Waring Racing, for their support of heat race number 1. James, a racer, a dedicated member of the community, but also a league owner of James Waring Racing, hosting weekly races, as well as a painter for many of the drivers you'll see this week in the SummerSlam 499. Thanks to James and company for all of their support of this race. But it's time to get down to business. Tonight, opening night, 2 heat races on tap, and we welcome you inside the PGR eSports broadcast booth as we get ready to head down trackside for the first race of the week. I'll welcome in my broadcast crew in just a little while. You hear from our pit reporter Tyler Vickery, as he'll have all the storylines from track level. But before we get going here this evening, it's my usual partner in crime that will join me in the booth for these first 2 heat races. He's also on the production controls tonight. Austin Green joins me for heats 1 and 2. Austin, we've made it to another marquee event, and the last 2 marquee events, specifically last year's SummerSlam 499, but also the PGR 500 in February, produced some of the most memorable moments we have seen in series history. In fact, both races had finishes that I think will be burned into the memories of many of the drivers and fans and promoters and officials alike for many years to come. But we arrive at Talladega again. It's a new car this year. The next gen makes its SummerSlam debut. So much newness going on, but so much excitement as well as we get ready to go for heat race number 1.
Yeah, and really excited too, Dawson. Obviously had the pleasure to call the PGR 500 with you. We saw the exciting finish. Wyatt Gray, I think, has to be the biggest storyline coming into this week because he's the first driver to have an opportunity to go for the Grand Slam, winning both the PGR 500 and the PGR SummerSlam 499. That journey, of course, starts tonight, but I mean, all the storylines coming into this event. You've got drivers that this is their first PGR special event. You've got other drivers that are veterans still looking to win their first PGR special event. In Talladega Superspeedway, it's actually, in my opinion, a little bit better than Daytona because the track's a little bit wider. The racing seems to be just a little bit more aggressive. And as you mentioned, with the newer Cup Car package, cannot wait to see what we've got in store for the first 2 heats tonight.
And a lot in store under the hoods of these race cars that we'll see throughout the night as well in these opening 2 heat races. You talked about some favorites. I'll add 2 more names before we get into the format for this week. The 2-time defending winner of this race is Malik Ray. He'll race Sunday no matter what. He'll have a provisional. Even if he cannot advance through the heat races, he will be back again to try to defend that championship belt and win 3 in a row, which would be unprecedented in history in and of itself. The other man I'll add is Daniel Falkingham. He would be the only man to win both the PGR 500 and the SummerSlam 499. And if you'll remember, he had an opportunity last year to sweep the events and win the Grand Slam and just could not quite get around Malik Ray in the trial, again, in one of the most classic finishes we have seen in series history. Briefly, before we get going in Heat 1, let's tell you how this week is going to work in terms of the format. The heat races are much the same as you've seen in both February and August. It'll be 30 drivers in each heat. 240 is the total number of entries. Again, it shatters the SummerSlam record from last year of just short of 200 here in this year's event. Those 30 drivers in each heat will contest a 35-lap heat race. Over the course of that race, the top 3 finishers will advance directly into Sunday's feature. That's right, the duels are no more. This race can get you into Sunday. Those top 3 finishers will also advance into a top 24 feature race coming up later in the week that will set the top 12 rows of the grid. 4th through 12th in each of these races, that's 9 total drivers from each heat, advance to Saturday evening's last chance qualifiers that will then set the last 16 spots on the grid for Sunday. It is 40 spots available through heat races, a few provisionals as well. We'll get to that through the week as we go. Let's talk payouts as well. You see here, there is money on the line in the heats, the LCQs, the top 24 race, but Austin, they're all chasing a new record high SummerSlam winning pot of $2,000 in the championship belt.
Yeah, and the beauty of PGR, just over the last couple of years, Dawson, every big event, the payouts seem to get bigger and bigger. Obviously, still not quite the $3,000 that it was to win the PGR 500, but all week, even along with the payouts, a lot of things we've heard drivers talking about. I want to take the belt away from Malik Ray. Nobody wants to see him get 3 in a row, but he's still going to be one of the favorites coming into this week.
Well, he definitely is. You see him there, his back-to-back defending championship belts in this race. He's won in 2 different cars, Xfinity and Gen 6. Before we get down trackside, we will very quickly bring in our pit reporter, Tyler Vickery, who'll be doing great work for us this week, track level. Tyler, coming into this week real quick, what are you looking forward to as we get into the SummerSlam 499?
I'm looking for underdogs, and I'm looking for some surprise upsets of drivers that normally you would expect to be a chalk for being able to make it into the SummerSlam 499. We've seen it last year before with some big names getting knocked out early. I would not be surprised if we see it again, especially in Heat 1 with some of these drivers we have. That's going to be the big key. Who's going to make it in? Who's an underdog that's going to make it in? Who's going to be one of those big favorites that gets knocked out early?
Well, it's time to head down trackside. The wait is over. The road is complete. It's time to start the week of racing in the SummerSlam 499, and it will begin with the starting grid for heat race number 1 presented by James Waring Racing. And who better to start on pole for heat number 1 than the heat sponsor himself, James Waring, who will start from the opening position of this week's heat races. Alongside him in position number 2, returning to PGR for another marquee event attempt, it's Jack Mace in the 07, brand new blue, green, and black aboard that 07. Row 2, a pair of nightmare eSports entries. You're going to hear us talk about teams this week. We'll get into that as the racing goes on. The pair of entries on Row 2, Nathan Harper, a multi-time PGR winner, still searching for his first crown jewel, and one of the young upstarts of Super Speedway Racing, Axel Smith, in the Grillo's Pickles Chevrolet. He'll line up from 4th. Row 3, Casey Sprinkle in the 59 will represent the McCullough Motorsports group here in this opening heat race, alongside one of the newest entries for the Team dubbed the Jack Shack. Matt Lee in the purple, green, and black 04. He'll roll from P6 tonight, looking to take his new team right to the top. Row 4, one of the veterans of the iRacing service, Eugene Mozganov, makes a PGR start tonight in Heat 1. He'll roll from P7. Alongside him, Devin Smrecker returns to another marquee event. He started a number of them already in his PGR career. And on row 5, Yaroslav Donskoy made an attempt at the PGR 500 back in February. He'll roll from 9th in red, green, and yellow aboard that number 18. Alongside the series owner, Michael Triscaro, he started every SummerSlam 499. He's looking to go 3 for 3. He'll roll from 10th.
Back in row 6, going to be a pair of Chevys on the inside. Josh Cruz, good to see him in the field for this year's SummerSlam 499. His journey starts tonight. Ilya Nikitin, I believe this is his first PGR special event start. He will roll off from the 12th spot here in heat race number 1. Tom Dixon rolls off from the 13th position. Michael Goodwin in that number 23 car. He'll have some work to do starting from the outside of row number 7. Andrew Harris starts in 15th tonight. Cole Larson, one of the young but very experienced drivers that we will see in the field here for Heat 1. He'll start to the outside of row number 8. Back in row 9, Jesse Calloway in the 18. We've seen him at some of these marquee events before. Could this be his year? We'll find out. Joshua Newman to his outside in 18th. Last two drivers starting inside the top 20, Justin Harris and Sam Hurst.
Further back in the field on row 11, it'll be Michael Childs in the all-purple or pink number 23, alongside John Michael Chavez into the 22, all-purple aboard that Cherry Coke Toyota Camry entry. Row 12, we'll see Joe Sullivan in the 15, start from 23rd alongside Daniel Lawless, repping Milwaukee Tools this week in the PGR 524th. Back on row 13, it'll be Nick Kerblett returning from the PGR 500 qualifying process, and Chris Taylor rolls from alongside him in the 26th position. Row 14, Matthew Cummins in the purple, gray, and black Hoosier 33, alongside Alan Martin, red, blue, and white aboard his 15. And finally, in the top 30, Ben Hallam for Tabula Rasa eSports returns in 29th. He's a multi-time PGR marquee event starter. And Sean Boundy rolls from 30th on the grid tonight. A couple of drivers, I think, opting to pit start means he will start towards the front of the field, or at least the mid-pack. Race info for you as we get going. Austin, a notable change as well. You see the race info there. The choose cone will be used as well tonight throughout the caution periods.
Yeah, the choose cone going to be a big deal. We saw this a couple of times just over the last couple of weeks in various PGR races, and a couple of guys were making mistakes which led to penalties, but just thinking about the upside of it, Dawson, all the team strategy that's going to come into play, these guys having the opportunity to maybe pick a lane where they can line up with their teammate, and for the solo drivers, I think it's an advantage for them too, because maybe you have the option to try to pick up a couple of spots. Maybe you take the inside when everybody thinks the outside's better. A lot of options. Going to be very fun to watch as we go throughout the heat races this week.
Well, the waiting is over. This is the most nervous part of the week for the drivers on track, is waiting to start your heat race. 5 laps longer than we're used to in these heat races. It's 35 instead of 30. There's a fast repair in the pits. You get 1 do-over in this race. 3 go to the feature, 9 go to the LCQs. Everyone else goes home. The field, for the first time, will enter the Sim Wrap Market restart zone. The road is complete. The week of the biggest sim racing event of the summer is here. Heat Race 1 of the SummerSlam 499 is green. In all of the lead up to this race, we forgot to mention there is a custom setup aboard these Gen 7 cars. It has provided some of the raciest Gen 7 action we have seen since well before the 500 in February, although it is all simplification so far. 2x2 on the inside Waring, on the outside Mace. Both have good pushes from Harper and Smith. Out back, Sprinkles the first to kind of break rank in the front of the field. He'll go to third on the outside, and that's going to propel the British driver, Jack Mace, in the 07 right to the lead. Remember, Mace started last year's PGR SummerSlam 499 and led laps in that race and leads the opening lap of his heat back to turn 1. Smith is his push. Sprinkle with them. Then Matt Lee in behind them. Bottom side reeling just a bit. Waring, Harper, and then a couple of other cars behind them as well. That's Mozganov that's on the bottom, but Axel Smith turns left. And one of the youngest drivers in the SummerSlam field wants a chance to lead it here down the back straightaway. Axel Smith to the left side door of Jack Mace, although the outside keeps up the run. Sprinkle, Lee, Sprecher all file in line to push. Again, it continues to be too wide. And considering the racing we've seen in this lead up to this race, I'm a little surprised that it has been 2x2 so far. We've seen a lot of 3 wide, a lot of big runs. The right rear quarter panel is almost as if it used to be with the big time runs as we work down through the tribal. Lap 2 going to go on the board. Axel Smith leads at the line with the help of Waring, and it again continues to be 2x2 rush hour traffic on lap 3.
All things considered, though, pretty tame start to this heat. These guys are going to be fighting for track position every single lap. 35 laps doesn't sound like a lot of time, and it's certainly not, especially if we get a couple of cautions, but so far, clean and green at the front of the field. How about it? James Waring, Heat 1 sponsor, door-to-door here with Nathan Harper. Both of those two would love to see a secured spot into the PGR SummerSlam if they can find victory lane here tonight. Further back, still jockeying for position. Dawson, no 3 wide just yet. Cole Larson, maybe the first guy to think about it.
And no surprise to me, one of the super speedway veterans in Cole Larson is the first to jump out of line, but that run goes nowhere with the way they're pushing up front. Now a couple of cars a little more eager towards the back to try to jump out of line and make something happen. Up front, that was almost an offset push into turn 1. Waring and Smith got very much offset there up the banking. They managed to keep it together. Waring goes back to the lead, doing a very good job so far being calm and managing lanes. But this is going to be an issue I think we see all week, and we saw it a couple of times last night. Waring on the push from Smith. They're pushing so deep in line, it is pushing Waring up the racetrack. And a couple of nights ago, it resulted in an offset push situation that caused a massive accident at the front of the field. I think we'll have to keep an eye on that all week. Waring, though, continues to lead the way. Smith on the push of Mace is topside, but Harper, the better push so far for Waring off 4.
Well, one thing I will say, Dawson, we obviously saw kind of a different setup just over the last couple of months with some of the iRacing updates to this Cup car, and now that they've kind of gotten it back to kind of that happy medium where you can really get aggressive on the pushes, but the runs maybe not quite as big as what they used to be a couple years ago in the PGR 500. Nonetheless, that is not stopping all the aggressive pushing that we have seen so far tonight. Still 2x2 just about back through the entirety of the field. One guy to keep your eye on, though, and we talk about all the big teams, but Michael Triscaro, series owner, coming into this race tonight. Dawson, he has still not found his first PGR win. Tell you what, wouldn't be a bad way to do it if you get it in a heat race leading up to the SummerSlam.
No, absolutely. And look, we've talked about the crown jewel being that first PGR win for Michael Triscaro and how special that would be. You're on board with the series owner. He's just trying to race his way in tonight first and foremost, and he can focus on the rest later. He is currently 6th in the outside line behind the Josh Cruz machine. That's the 44, the purple Heatwave Chevrolet in front of him. Up front, the bottom side got all the push down the front straightaway. Nathan Harper working very well as a pusher in this race so far. He'll duck out of line here, though, and want a chance to lead. Axel Smith goes to the push of Mace. Waring, for one of the first times tonight, is the pusher here on Nathan Harper, or rather, on Nathan Harper on the outside lane with Sprinkle running in third. They continue to try to get this third lane working out back around Sean Boundy. It has not yet found its way into the front of the pack. That's just because not a lot of cars inside the top 12 are willing to move up there. That's given the leaders plenty of opportunities to lane switch, take turns leading. Harper, Mace, Waring, Smith have all gotten chances to lead this race in the opening stages.
And obviously we talked about it in the race info, but with no green flag pit stops expected here throughout this heat, there's really no reason that you don't try to make your way to the front early. Now, Dawson, obviously, I got to think for some of these guys that are sitting towards the back, they're maybe expecting a big wreck here at some point before about the halfway or 3/4 mark in this heat. But, I mean, we're already less than 30 laps to go, and the only movement we've really seen is the guys up front trying to control both lanes. You mentioned a couple of drivers that have tried that third lane, and none of those advantageous takes have really worked out so far. But for Cole Larson, he's one of the guys that I'm still keeping my eye on. Justin Harris, Michael Childs, Jesse Calloway, all in that spot as well, all with an opportunity to try to make their way to the front.
Yeah, you're going to hear us talk a lot about teams this week. You've already heard us talk about a couple of them here at the front of the field. I'll mention them again. You'll hear these names throughout the week. A couple of teammates here in this opening heat, Harper and Axel Smith, both run under the Nightmare banner, and they have run 1-2 for a lot of this race, although the moves have not been very coordinated up front. We'll see if that's by design here later in the race. Saw Axel Smith turn out of line right there from behind his teammate Nathan Harper. So those two, so far, if they're on the same page, certainly trying to at least control both lanes. I wonder if that's the strategy there. But several teams throughout the fields tonight. You'll see another in Heat 2 coming up with some teammates involved. Oh, Waring offset with Harper a little bit down the back straightaway. They get back together, and now the outside lane takes serious control of this race. 5 cars clear, back to Smrecker. Almost 6 as Josh Cruz is alongside of Axel Smith. The inside finally gets rolling here in turn 3, and boy, does it get rolling in a big way. Smrecker to the back of Waring, and Nathan Harper says, where did that run come from, as Waring goes back to the point.
And as we ride on board here, switching to the roll bar cam, this is actually Casey Sprinkle, one of the McCullough Motorsports drivers. He was going to be a favorite coming into this week. Right now, finds himself in that 5th position. And I'll tell you what, if you're anybody inside this top 5, top 7 range, I think you're pretty content with just kind of riding around right now. Obviously, there is still some money on the line to win these heat races, but goal number 1, get yourself in position to try to advance through, ideally to the feature, if nothing else, at least the last chance qualifiers. And as it stood so far, this is probably about the cleanest start to any sort of heat race that we have had, whether it was for the SummerSlam 499, the PGR 500. Everybody minding their P's and Q's is back to the front of the field. Goes Devin Smrecker.
And Devin Smrecker, it was a big move a moment ago to turn left on the bumper of Axel Smith. Early in a heat race, it can be a bit nerve-wracking to try to make that move and go lead the race. But Smrecker has started a number of these crown jewels at this point. He's got a number of heat races under his belt around some of the guys in this field. He's familiar enough to want to go make a move. And I think you're going to see that out of a number of drivers who have not made as many weekly PGR starts, but have made a couple of marquee starts in these big events. They're getting to the comfort level point now with the guys around them that they can start to make the more aggressive moves and be in contention for the win. And I think Devin Smrecker is Exhibit A. So far, he continues to hold the point, although Casey Sprinkle will nose ahead of him halfway down the Alabama gang super stretch. Do want to note real quick, there is another team in this, or at least an alliance, shall we say, through the EPI group, that being Eugene Moskanov, Yaroslav Donskoy, and Ilya Nikitin in the 3 machine. They are all running, at least in an alliance tonight, although it could be more of a formal team again with the EPI group in that group, and that's the 48, the 18, and the 3 on your timing and scoring. Smrecker continues to lead. He'll go top, back to the bottom. The blocks are getting bigger up front. We've been clean for 10 laps. But Smrecker's blocks up front are getting a little bit more risky, if you will, as the comfort level continues to go up with this setup.
Yeah, they certainly are, and we've been keeping an eye on the front of the field. But how about some of the guys hanging out towards the back right now? A couple of driver cams for a few of the drivers that, again, making what I believe is going to be either their first start or one of their first starts in a PGR special event. One of those drivers that we're going to hop on board with right now, that is none other than Matthew Cummins. Started in the 27th spot, currently sitting in 29th. So race not quite trending in the right direction, at least at this point. As caution is out, we had trouble up front, Dawson.
It appears to be Michael Goodwin. I don't see a caution yet. He has gone around. He's gone off the racetrack. So for Goodwin, it's a tough break as he gets off the racetrack towards the tail end of the field. But it will not draw the caution. It has spread the field out, though, in a huge way. And in fact, much of the top 12 is now under a blanket. In fact, it goes back to just the Andrew Harris car that's really in this lead pack as they run right now. Several cars still in draft range, but it's going to take a moment for them to get back into contention. So the field is fractured. It does not draw the caution, and the leaders continue to go on as scheduled as Harper's gone back to the lead. Good statement so far from the multi-time PGR winner in Nathan Harper that he will be a car to watch this week.
Absolutely, and yeah, good call on that. Thought for sure it would have drawn the caution for these guys just based off of the stack up. As we were riding on board with Matthew Cummins, you heard how much he had to get out of the gas. And this is just one of those incidents here. You're going to actually see at the 23. Oh, it's a big stack up right around the mid-pack. Just leaves really nothing that Michael Goodwin can do. He gets shot out of line, but man, I'll tell you what, Dawson, that is an unbelievable save. I know he's going to need a caution to get back into this race, but I mean, man, just to keep that car in one piece right there, not something that happens too often at a track like Talladega.
No, it's a big deal for him, and obviously now a mulligan later in the race. If he does get the caution, then he is going to need to get back into this thing. Back to the front of the field. We have continued to be clean and green now on lap 13 of this race already, and we have stayed green the entire time. Big block down the Alabama gang super stretch. Harper went top to bottom on the bumper of Matt Lee as Lee wanted to go to the point for the first time in this race. Lee showing maybe a little bit of displeasure with the push there at the end of the back straightaway for that block from Harper, but nonetheless, all is fair so far in this opening heat race, and Harper goes right back to the top of the help of James Waring. He went maybe a little bit too early, though, and that will allow the 0-4 of Matt Lee to almost nose ahead. He will put his nose in clean air here on the bottom. Again, sporting new colors. Matt Lee joining up with a group for the Jack Shack. You'll see a number of their cars over the course of this week, including several in heat number 2 coming up in just a little bit. But it's Matt Lee to the bottom, a veteran of the super speedway scene. He wants to lead laps early in this heat race, but Harper, Waring, and Smith continue to deny him up top, and Sprinkle as well. That group of 4 has been really, really strong controlling things from the middle lane.
I'll tell you what, track temp to start this race was something that I was wondering how it was going to kind of swing the momentum of this group. If it was going to be more the outside was dominant, the inside was dominant, but they've actually been pretty even so far tonight. One thing we have noticed so far, though, if you get the right pusher or even a couple of pushers behind you, you can make any line work. That's what we just saw right there with Nathan Harper. Got a big shove as both him and the 97 of Axel Smith were tandemed up. That put him clear momentarily, but he's quick to jump back to the top. All about managing lanes here at a track like Talladega right now. The 4 and the 97 doing it better than anyone. Nathan Harper leads off at turn 2.
This is really confident stuff from Nathan Harper, too. Again, he's a multi-time series winner for a reason, and he has been arguably the most comfortable car throwing blocks early in this heat race. He's been pretty pinpoint on his blocks so far in this race, and it's kept him up in the lead for now. And, you know, for Axel Smith, James Waring at points, Matt Lee, Casey Sprinkle, so far being good soldiers. Now as this race wears on, you got to imagine the patience is going to start to wear thin for a couple of those cars as maybe they want to stay up a couple of rows and stay in line. Speaking of cars going up a couple of rows, Eugene Mozganov's going to poke his nose out for the first time. Cole Larson's going to poke his nose out for the first time as Axel Smith and Casey Sprinkle got a bit disconnected when Harper and Waring went back to the bottom. Those two cars are going to take their first trip out front of that middle lane. Top 3 clear by 2 car lanes. Devin Sprecker's going to have a massive run when he gets there. Matt Lee sees it coming. He throws the block. Great onboard camera here from Michael Triscaro and from Devin Sprecher as well, showing how much the hands are moving in the cockpit. A lot of movement going on inside these cars early.
Yeah, it's very busy here at Talladega. A lot of people think,
trouble out back. Sorry. It's I thought it was the Mozganov machine. It's the Donskoy machine in the 18 as he's going to get turned out of line. He got the outside wall a ton, and he has what appears to be major right front damage on board that 18.
He does have a fast repair. I would assume that the 18 here, though, is going to try to stay out, just limp this thing around, hope for a caution here. 20 laps to go. That's a really tough spot to be in for Donskoy. Not sure if it was contact or if that car just got out of shape as they were entering or getting ready to enter turn 3, but he's got to try to hang with this second group, Dawson. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. You saw that heavy right front damage that you just mentioned there. We'll have to keep an update on that. We'll go back and look at what happened in just a moment, but at the front of the field, single file through the front 4 cars. Nathan Harper, Matt Lee, Devin Sprecher, and Eugene Mozganov all trying to pull away here at Talladega. Not going to last for long. Guess who is now slotted into the top 5? Cole Larson in that number 20 Mountain Dew Chevy. We saw him trying to get the third lane going earlier, Dawson. He may be the catalyst that tries to split up these top 3 or 4.
Yeah, they're going to try. I think once again, as this field, especially as it whittles out, there's less opportunity to get eliminated in this race. By the way, several cars have lost the draft. We talked about Michael Goodwin earlier. Matthew Cummins is well off the field, 26 seconds back. The Donskoy and Josh Cruz machines. Josh Cruz is the other car kind of involved in that stack up off turn 4. They are both outside the draft at this point. They've joined a group that features Michael Childs, Ben Hallam, Sam Hurst, John Michael Chavez, and Daniel Lawless. That's the cars that are off the draft right now. Everyone from 21st on up is still in the lead. Pack trouble. James Waring, I think, was the car that got out of line in the 95. He gets turned off the racetrack. He makes the save, but it will cost him his track position as he'll go to the tail end of this lead group.
And that was a big-time save. We've seen a couple of really close calls now here, and we are not even... Actually, we're just about at the halfway point here through heat race number 1. That was a good catch by Waring. He will be able to tag on and extend to the back of this lead group. Just going to be 17 laps to go. As we cross the line, though, this time, the 4 of Nathan Harper still leads the way. The middle line dominant surprised Dawson that we don't see a couple of guys trying to move to the high side.
I'm a little bit surprised as well. This race has taken on a completely different tone here in the second half. We've now moved to the middle and top sides of the racetrack. Almost shades of, trouble. One car gets turned. That was the Nikitin machine, the 3. He's going to go down to the inside wall. I think he stayed off of it. If he did, it was a big save. He did not. He got it a ton, and the caution's going to get drawn here. Watch out. One car is going to get him on the way by.
Oh, man, you just heard the cars coming up there. Really nothing Nikitin could do once he kind of got stopped. He just was trying to hold it there. And you can see massive, massive left front damage. In fact, that might be catastrophic. That left front tire locked up. I don't think he's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. And again, we talked about it at the start. Everybody does have that one fast repair, but obviously track position, something so hard to get back once you lose it here at a track like Talladega. Couldn't tell, though, exactly who he got clobbered by, Dawson, but all things considered, I believe this is only going to go down as about a maybe 1 to 3 car incident.
Yeah, it was definitely one car on the back end that got a piece of this. I couldn't tell quite who it was either. We'll have to take a look at the replay here. We'll start with how this incident occurs here off of turn number 2. Nikitin was running in the middle lane. Oh, it starts up top as Triscaro got halfway turned out of line by Jack Mace. And Keaton, I thought he might have kept it off the wall the first time I saw it. He did not. He got the left front a ton. And that's why he comes back up. He's got this car locked down, but the wheel's not moving. There's no way to turn that car, and he gets hit. I think it's by Josh Cruz in the 44, who already got a piece of the incident just a little bit earlier with Donskoy. And you're going to see it again here. It's actually going to start up top with Triscaro and Jack Mace. It's going to be an offset push that gets Nikitin out of shape. And from there, a big hit to the wall. And, you know, in that position for Nikitin, there's just nothing you can do.
No, there really isn't. And as soon as you get turned like this at Talladega, you kind of have two options. You either try to steer out of the spin and try to drive away from the inside wall, or you lock it down and hope that you don't hit it that hard. He kind of hesitates between which one he wants to do. And when you're going, 195 miles an hour, it comes up so quickly. And yeah, you're right. That was Josh Cruz. That was a big, big hit to the left front for his race car. I would be surprised if the suspension wasn't damaged. And actually, that was the right front, it looks like. But either way, two-car incident here brings out our first caution in Heat 1. All things considered, though, Dawson, up until that point, it was relatively clean.
Yeah, again, considering the racing we've seen the last couple nights on this setup, I'm a little bit surprised. And, man, you see right here, I was going to touch on this for Josh Cruz. You can't see. He commits to the top lane thinking Nikitin's on the apron. That's where he sees the smoke. And he commits to jump out to the outside. And as those cars fade to the bottom in front of him, there's just nothing you can do as a driver. By then, he's fully in the gas. There's nothing he can do to slow down or get out of the way, and he does clip the Nikitin machine there. Tough break for both. Nikitin does have the meatball flag that is required repairs for car number 3. We'll see if he does attempt to get those repairs done on pit road and stay in this race, or opt to use the fast. I do believe that he made it back to pit road, so imagine he will stay in this race and stay in contention. Donskoy, Cruz, Goodwin, Cummins, the other cars on pit road. We'll start to reset up front now. Nathan Harper's had himself a nice night so far. He's led several of the opening 20 laps or so of this heat race for Nightmare eSports. Again, carrying some new logos aboard that familiar Dallas Cowboys branded Ford Mustang Dark Horse. Matt Lee continues to run second, but Eugene Mozganov's seen some comfort level come in, I think, here in the middle portions of this race. He now runs in the 3rd spot. Again, a guy who's been around this service for a long time. He's well known by much of the iRacing community, at least the oval community at this point, but not to the PGR community. It's pretty new for Eugene Moskanov to be making a start tonight, and he'll do so, and so far, so good for the driver of the 48. He runs in 3rd. Then it's Devin Sprecher in 4th, and I think he's been just as impressive in the 26. Again, he started a couple of PGR 500s. He started a SummerSlam. So for Sprecher, again, this is kind of, all things routine for him. He's done this heat race thing a couple of times, so no surprise to me he is getting towards the front of the field. Axel Smith right behind him in 5th. I'm not really surprised. Axel Smith was on my list of underdogs for this week as a guy who's burst onto the scene through the Light Series amongst other promotions in the past several months. Cole Larson runs 6th. Again, a super speedway veteran. No surprise to me. He was going to find the front. Michael Triscaro, Jack Mace, Casey Sprinkle, Sean Bounty. Those are all names I think we had circled coming into this week as guys that would at least make a trip to Saturday with a chance to make it to Sunday, if not advance straight to Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Dawson, as you were sitting there giving the update on kind of what the front of the field was looking like, one thing I was thinking about with that last incident that we saw, that was kind of the first instance of pushing gone wrong. And we saw it right on the exit of the corner where the cars kind of unload. Something that we haven't seen a ton recently with this car because it just seems like the run's not as big as they used to be, but it just makes me wonder as we go through the rest of this heat, guys are going to be willing to take more chances. Any sort of give and take is probably starting to transition to a little bit more take than give. So I think it's really important for these guys that are inside the top 10. They've worked so hard through the first half of this heat race, a little bit more than that, to keep this track position. And now that we're coming up on kind of a later race restart, they're going to be in a really good spot to try to secure themselves either a spot into the feature or the last chance qualifiers. And for the guys in the back half of the field, it's all bets are off. We may not have seen a 3rd lane yet. I think we're going to see one this restart.
A reminder, and it came up on us a little quicker than I thought. We'll remind you we are utilizing the choose cone throughout this week's races, and that was the first instance of it. So Heat 1 is kind of the guinea pig for this week of what that is going to look like. Again, it is very similar to what NASCAR uses throughout their national series. You have to choose by the start-finish line. The choose cone marker, we don't yet have it on the iRacing.com scan of this racetrack, but the marker for this week is going to be the middle A in the word Talladega on the start-finish line. So keep that in mind throughout the week of restarts. that with 1 lap to go and the pace car lights go out, similar to how you see them do in the Cup Series on Sunday, these guys will choose. Nathan Harper elects the outside lane for this restart, but it gives drivers an opportunity to take track position over maybe what has been the dominant line, and in this case, it's Devin Sprecher. He comes forward from 4th to the inside of the front row. Axel Smith is going to come forward on the bottom. So is Larson. So is Sprinkle. So is Harris, the 87. One of the first times we've seen him on the front part of the field inside the top 10 with a chance to potentially make it to, at the very least, a trip to Saturday. So remember the choose cone throughout the week. Again, we'll emphasize it more as cautions come out and as the restarts become more important. That choose could very well determine the winner of the SummerSlam 499 when we get down to business time on Sunday. Where you choose, how your lane goes, who's behind you may completely determine your fate in this race. Nathan Harper, as the leader, chose the outside lane. The field will work back into the Simrat Market restart zone. Green flag going to go back in the air in heat number 1. Harper gets a jump, so does Matt Lee. The outside's off and running, but the inside connected better. Would not be surprised to see these two cars jump down. No, it's actually the other way around. Sprecher, Smith jump up the banking at turn 1. Cole Larson, Casey Sprinkle say, thanks for nothing, guys. We're going to the back as the outside lane freight train's right on by.
Yeah, and it's been a dogfight, too, to get to the high side of the racetrack so far here tonight. Axel Smith, big shove to the back of the 26. That's going to generate all that momentum forward. Nathan Harper, though, well established out in front. Ford, Chevy, Ford, and another Chevy, all inside of the top 4 right now. But keep an eye on that inside line. Cole Larson, he is getting pushed. Him, Casey Sprinkle, and the 87. They have all now gotten linked up. Andrew Harris, one of the drivers who has been strong so far tonight. Can he propel that inside line to the front? Dawson, we're going to see Lee make that move to the bottom. They're going to be side by side as they come to the line with just 12 laps to go.
Yeah, probably the most obvious move of the week so far is Matt Lee making that move to the bottom and right back up to the middle. Matt Lee, the veteran, goes to the point here with 12 laps to go in Heat 1. Larson will contest to his left elbow up the banking of turns 1 and 2. Harper being a good soldier for Lee so far, not willing to make a move out of line just yet. Sprinkle continues to be the pusher on the bottom and continues to have some success. Although Lee and Harper will get a nice run down the Alabama Gang Superstretch. Out back, Jack Mace starting to think about a move 3 wide. Sean Bounty peaked with him. Sprecher peeking out of line. Some guys looking for air. Oh, trouble in the back of the field. Multiple cars around. It's the first multi-car accident. Trouble up front. Matt Lee gets turned right in front of the leaders. Harris involved. Waring involved. Others pile in. Jack Mace is in the wall. The 23 is involved as well. And 2 separate multi-car incidents. They are continuing to crash as Nick Keaton goes for a spin.
Oh, man, and this is really going to cause some calamity here in terms of track position. The wreck that brought out the caution didn't even start up front. But a lot of the guys that were up front running got collected, so now all of a sudden, this is really going to shake up the lineup. Looks like Sean Bounty there. Heavy damage to the right front of his race car. You can see the sparks out of the back. We had multiple cars involved in the initial incident towards the back of the field as well. This one's going to be a mess to sort out.
Well, the first incident started at the tail end of the lead group. I just caught it as the camera caught it out back of the field. It's multiple cars that are going to go sideways here. I thought it was the Herblett machine that was the first one to go around. I was correct. That's the 21 on the outside, the blue Pepsi Chevrolet. And it's going to be a stack up on the bottom. This is very similar to what we saw a little earlier with Michael Goodwin. A stack up bottom side of the racetrack. You see as it works back, it gets worse. The push into the back of the car there to the inside of Herblett. And around they go. There are multiple cars involved in that one. That's at the back of the field. Then up front, as guys jumped on the brakes and tried to get out of the way of their fellow competitors, Matt Lee got turned in the 0-4 or just got out of line, got out of shape. No, he got turned. Nathan Harper into the back of Matt Lee when the caution came out, and that's what sparked the one up front.
And this is a big one, too, as Lee comes back up the racetrack. The 87 just nowhere to go. Bounty takes a pretty good shot into the outside fence as well. And then a couple of the other cars further up front that had to spin, just trying to miss this one. And, you know, I will say, too, Dawson, I almost kind of wonder if Matt Lee saw the caution and just kind of the knee-jerk reaction of, okay, let me let off, and Harper was just so laser-focused. But it didn't really look like that. It almost just looked like, as you said, just trying to push in the corner. And even though it looked pretty square, not square enough, got him turned around, and that's going to be basically, I would say, our first big incident of the night, even though it's the second caution. For the guys in the back, even the ones that were able to hold on to it, it's not going to change their track position much. But for guys like Matt Lee, Andrew Harris, Sean Bounty, the cars that were running up front, I mean, this is all of a sudden, your race goes from you feel pretty comfortable to now you're in about as stressful of a position as you can be in. No one will come into less than 10 laps to go, and you're going to have to make up all that ground to get back to the front.
And it's a few guys that have been at the front really the whole time. And Matt Lee has been inside the top 5 for this entire heat race, and now inside of 10 to go has to work all the way back to the front of the field. Some more of the cars that were involved towards the tail end of the field. Tom Dixon is not one we mentioned before. It appears that Jesse Calloway may have gotten a piece of this. Joe Sullivan is on pit road, potentially addressing some damage. Justin Harris was the 8 car that was involved. Michael Childs is involved in this. That's the 23 you see spinning right there. We mentioned the Nikitin machine as well. And it was very close to a couple of others. By the way, this was about as close as it can get for Yaroslav Donskoy in the 18. I thought for sure he was going to get involved in this one. Herblett came back down, or rather Dixon, I think, came back down. This is about as close as it can get for the 18. It's going to spark in front of him, and watch as the car comes down. That is very, very razor thin for Donskoy.
And he also gets a good view of that wreck that happens up front, able to check up well before any issues with that. But kind of a simultaneous 2-incident caution here is going to set us up for a late race restart in the first heat. Dawson, I mean, would you really have it any other way? Most of these guys that we see that, you know, run the typical Thursday night PGR Intimidator Super Speedway Series races, they're used to this. They know that the pressure comes with these late race restarts and that one bad move can send you to the back of the field. But this is also where you make your money, and this is where drivers determine whether or not they want to move on to the feature, the last chance qualifiers, or if they're going to go home after just one night of racing.
Yeah, a couple of notes here before we go back onto the green flag course. We're coming to the choose right here. On the last incident, Josh Cruz was the only car to come down pit road and not use a fast repair. I imagine that is probably still the case. A number of cars with major damage, including Sean Boundy, who had to address a meatball flag. Joe Sullivan penalized for that last caution. A bigger penalty, though, to Nathan Harper, the dominant car of the heat, penalized there for the incident with Matt Lee. That's going to be a common theme in these heat races. A cause of caution penalty will send you to the tail end of the longest line, and that is the case for the dominant car for Nightmare Esports, Nathan Harper, one of the favorites of the event, going to the back and in peril early. At the choose, Smrecker goes to the top, so does Larson, so does Axel Smith, so does Casey Sprinkle, and who's the first man to pick the bottom and take the front row? Series owner Michael Triscaro. He's got different colors this week. Simrat Market aboard that blue, gold, and red and black 34. But the vision is the same for Triscaro. He wants to win tonight, but more importantly, he wants a victory in the SummerSlam 499 this week. He started all of them, trying to make it 3 for 3 tonight. Ben Hallam also takes the bottom. Sam Hurst is going to move up several rows to the inside of row 3. And the recently involved car of Daniel Lawless in that caution, as well as Josh Cruz. A number of cars right here, Austin, are rolling the dice on the bottom lane. It's not been very good on the restart. But for some of those guys out back of the transfer spots, they had no choice here but to take some track position.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Dawson. But, you know, we talked about it pre-race. This is what I love about the choose cone. It gives that opportunity to certain drivers to say, hey, listen, maybe this lane hasn't worked so far tonight, but I think if I go down here with the right guys, I can make it happen. Michael Triscaro, even though he hasn't won a PGR race, he has come about as close as you can get several times, so you know he knows how to get it done. Dawson, I think that he is going to be a favorite here if he can get a good restart.
We're getting ready to go back green. The second caution flag of the night about to be cleaned off the speedway. And the next 2 heats up, only one of them tonight. You see the one that's going to open tomorrow night as well. You can read some of the lists there. But coming up in Heat 2, some big names. Guys that started the PGR 500. Adam Garza led laps in that race. Alexander Kroenke finished pretty decently inside the top 20. Barrett Polimas led late in that race. David Flanagan for the Jack Shack coming up in the next heat race. A couple of teammates for him. The Light Series champion Matthew David Wood, Mike Davenport, amongst others. Big names coming up just after this race goes checkered. Heat 2 will be on the speedway shortly after, right around 10 p.m. on the East Coast. But there is business to be attended to here. Inside of 10 to go, Devin Sprecher elects the outside. He's the control car. The field will work back to the Simrat Market restart zone one more time. Will this be the last restart, or will we have at least one more? Green flag back in the air. Outside goes. Inside doesn't. Triscaro, he's going to have to try to bail upwards here, or watch that track position fade away from him. He'll have to either find a hole or hope that Hallam gets to him, because they are bailing off the bottom in droves behind him.
And as it runs right now, that restart was not too bad for the bottom lane here, but they've got to get linked up. That's the 54 machine of Ben Hallam. Has had kind of a quiet night so far, but it is time to get aggressive. Speaking of aggressive, guess who? Casey Sprinkle
Trouble out
from
back,
McCall
Austin.
Motorsports.
Nathan Harper is around into the wall. The Nightmare Esports car goes sideways. Andrew Harris or James Waring, I can't tell which of the two cars that is. It's Harris. and 2 cars involved. That'll send us to another restart. The dominant car of the night has damage.
And a little surprised that that did bring out the caution when it did. Nathan Harper, Andrew Harris, kind of one of the, I don't want to call them back markers in this case, but 2 of the cars that, after that last incident, were set up towards the back of the field. Harper's got some damage. Was looking at Harris, and it looks like at least the front nose of his Chevy, yeah, has certainly got the worst end of the stick on that one. Huge right front damage. And so if he doesn't have a fast repair, that may be a night ender for him. Either way, that's going to set him up for a long road ahead to try to get all that track position back with just a couple of laps left to go. Dawson, based off of when that yellow flag just came out, I think we're going to go back green with less than 5 laps to go, and that builds the pressure even more for these drivers.
Yeah, and even later restart coming up here in just a moment. Let's go take a look at what happened to Nathan Harper and Andrew Harris. This was off the exit of turn 2. Remember, Harper had just been given an EOL penalty for the incident with Matt Lee a moment ago, and ironically, it's going to involve the same 2 cars again. And this time, appears to be a little bit of netcode, potentially 04 to 4, then 4 to 87. So maybe some 3-car netcode there off turn 2, as Harper had to get aggressive. He had to get desperate. He split to the middle. I think Matt Lee was also going for that gap in the center. They come together, and in the middle of the back straightaway, Harper goes for a spin into the outside wall. Harris sandwiched against the fence as well. You'll see what I'm talking about here. And yeah, Matt Lee's coming up just a little bit. They kind of sort of get together. I think they were going to make contact anyway, but there is some netcode there. But Harper and Harris get the worst of it, and it's the second caution of the night for Harper. Bad night gone worse.
Yeah, absolutely. And for both him and Matt Lee, who were working together so good at the front. But that's what happens, right? When you get towards the back of the pack, desperation sets in. Guys who were maybe working together all of a sudden are now trying to get right back into it, being aggressive, taking whatever they can, but just doesn't quite work out in this case. And so they're going to have to reset. A lot of work ahead for Nathan Harper. I don't believe he got a ton of damage during that last wreck with Matt Lee, so I think he will still have that fast repair. I don't know, though. That car definitely still looking damaged either way. As you said, Dawson, bad night gone worse. But for the guys up front, we're starting to get closer to that pay window. Devin Sprecher, we've been talking about him inside the top 5 throughout most of this race. Looks like he's going to lead us back to what could be the final restart. And Cole Larson, who has picked up 14 spots from this race, so far, rather, since the start of this race, he is now also back on the front row.
Yeah, let's reset the field for you before the choose. Again, they will choose next time by. If you're just joining us, the choose cone in effect throughout this entire week. They will choose at the line. They have to go to either direction of the middle A in Talladega to choose here with 1 lap to go. We'll reset the field for you as we get ready to go back under the green flag. Devin Sprecher is your race leader. Cole Larson is in the 2nd spot. Casey Sprinkle is 3rd. Michael Triscaro benefits off that restart and it being a quick caution. He'll advance to 4th. Axel Smith 5th. Ben Hallam 6th. Eugene Mozganoff is in the 7th spot. Daniel Wallace is 8th. John Michael Chavez in 9th. And Josh Cruz, you want to talk about a good drive, he's 10th right now in the 44. The last 2 cars in would be Sam Hurst and Justin Harris. They are 11th and 12th. Remember, top 3 go to Sunday's feature and the top 24 shootout race later in the week. The next 9 back through 12th position advance to Saturday's LCQs with 1 more chance to race on Sunday. Before we choose, before these guys get ready to go, let's send it down trackside real quick. A lot has happened in this race. To our pit reporter Tyler Vickery, really quickly. What have you heard over the radios, over the team chatter? What have you heard over the course of this race? How are drivers feeling going into what could be the final restart?
Oh, just saw a lot of team strategies. Definitely some verbal conflicts going on, especially after everything that happened with the Matt Lee situation. It's gotten very verbal to say the least. But I mean, these guys know that it's go time, and there's gonna be a lot of pushing and shoving. I know some of the teammates are gonna be working together. Mozganoff is gonna have his drivers trying to help out. Keep an eye on, especially Casey Sprinkle, Triscaro, Axel Smith, the normal guys that are always running in the PGR races. I think those guys are gonna end up working together as well. There's just been a lot of talks of trying to decide what to do and what lane to choose here on the choose cone as well. So a lot of strategies going throughout the radios. So we'll see how this plays out the last few laps, especially if potential green-white checkered.
Well, they are choosing here at the line. Tyler, thank you for that quick hit to pit road and continuing to get the information on the storylines. And it's a very similar storyline to last restart. First man to take the bottom. Again, it's Michael Triscaro. Sprecher, Larson, Sprinkle all hold, serve, and take the top side. Triscaro goes to the bottom. This time he's got a helper. Axel Smith is going to dive out of line and jump down to help the series owner here on what could be the last restart of the night. Ben Hallam is going to dive to the bottom of the racetrack. Lawless again goes down there in the 97. He's been involved in a couple of incidents tonight. So some guys back around the back half of the transfer spots taking a trade-off, a few spots in exchange for a potential spot in either Sunday or Saturday. Again, just more of a guarantee. But is it much of a guarantee? And Austin, before we go back green, let's remind everyone of February. Multiple heat races in February had crashes inside the transfer spots coming to the checkered flag on the final restart that eventually changed the drivers that advanced and the drivers that went home. Is that in the driver's minds? Surely it's in the driver's minds as we get ready to go back green here.
Oh, 100%. And yeah, you're right. The PGR 500 heats were absolutely wild. And, this is kind of that unspoken agreement I think that, most of the guys inside the top 5, top 10 have with each other. I've had the pleasure of racing in a couple of these events, and when you get to a late race restart like this, if you are anywhere, a couple of spots inside of the advancing positions, even if it is only to the last chance qualifiers, the last thing you want to do is do something that's too aggressive and completely take yourself out of a chance to advance through to the next round. So, maybe it's not a teammate that you're working with, but you got to make sure that you set yourself up to try to push a guy or work with a guy behind you, anything that you can do to keep yourself inside of one of those transfer spots. What you don't want to do, try to make the bold move, jump out of line to win a little extra money in the heat, and ultimately lose any chance at going for the big money on Sunday.
Briefly, before we go green, a penalty, an end-of-line penalty for hitting the choose cone marker. Chris Taylor will be sent to the tail end of the longest line for hitting the A in Talladega. He did not choose correctly before the start-finish line. He will be sent to the tail end. Now he's in a very desperate situation. 4 laps to go in heat race number 1 to the Simrat market restart zone we go. Green flag, a little bit more even restart this time. Smecker off to the races, but the help is going to be better on the bottom. Smith on Triscaro. It may very well be a 2-lane race when they get to turn 2.
And as they climb the banking through 1 and 2, that outside still rolling thanks to the tandem push right now from the 20 of Cole Larson. How about the 59, though, of Casey Sprinkle? He's been making noise inside the top 5 and top 3 all night long. Here he is with just 3.5 laps to go. Speaking of 3, how about 3 wide further back? That outside line ready to get going, and the cavalry has arrived. Big run on the high side, trying to get all the way to the front. Guess who, Dawson? One of the cars that we saw involved in an incident earlier, the 5 machine, trying to get back to the front.
That's Ilya Nikitin. James Waring's in that line. Led a bunch of laps and started on pole. They're going to go to the wall to throw the block, and now is where we're really going to see the limits of this setup get tested. Big push up front, Sprinkle to Smecker. 4 wide further back as one car gets spit out of line. 3 to go. That's the 112, I believe, of John Michael Chavez. It got spit out of line. Nikitin led that charge. Trouble. It's John Michael Chavez. No caution out back as a couple cars spin. Chavez, and I think it was the Lawless machine that got out of shape as 3 wide up front continues. Keaton, Waring, Mosgan, or not Mosgan, I'm sorry, Donskoy was in that line, Herblett, Jack Mace, Justin Harris. A number of cars outside are now inside. They'll see 2 to go at the line as Smecker, Sprinkle, and Mosgan off cover into 3.
Poor Triscaro, he is in no man's land right now. That top and middle lane just marching along, but he may get a little bit of help. The 18 of Donskoy had briefly jumped to the bottom. He'll go back to the middle. Cole Larson with the decision here, trying to save those temps. He wants to be able to push with everything he has if we make it to the white flag lap. And if we're going to get a caution, it's going to have to happen in this lap right here. Just 2 laps remaining here in Heat Race 1. Devin Smecker trying to win Heat 1 here at Talladega.
Triscaro, trouble out back. One car gets turned against the outside wall. It's not going to draw the caution, I don't think. It was a couple of cars towards the tail end of the field. Now it will as they spin all the way around. I believe it's the 15 of Alan Martin and the 33 of Matthew Cummins. And to overtime we go as those 2 cars come down off the banking.
And unfortunately, it looks like for Alan Martin here, yeah, that left rear destroyed. So this is going to put an end to his night, at least in terms of competitive chance. And oh man, he might have accidentally beached that car on the banking as well. We'll have to see if he's able to get going. The 33 still stopped here. And, we almost saw a caution, Dawson, just about a lap or a lap and a half before the actual incident that just took place here between the 15 and 33. But, we're lucky we didn't see another big one up front. These guys were 3 and 4 wide. Shows you the desperation that sets in once we get to a couple laps to go in one of these heat races.
We finally got to see kind of the limits of this setup and closer to the racing that we've seen kind of in the lead up to this week, and that was that 3 and 4 wide racing right there that featured big runs, big moves. You could kind of run anywhere you wanted to if you got the right run at the right time. And Outback's going to be a couple cars to come together. It looks like it's the Childs machine, the 23, as well as the Alan Martin machine. Childs gets Martin out of shape. Oh, man, Matthew Cummins, that's as tough a break as we've had all night. He had the wreck missed. He had chosen the right lane, and as Martin comes back down the racetrack, he collects Matthew Cummins, and nothing the 33 could do there.
Yeah, that was a big impact, too, to the outside wall. That's where all that suspension damage came in, at least to the rear of the race car. And for the 23, I believe that was actually one of the cars that we saw out of shape just about a lap or so ago. But at the back of the field, I mean, talked about Michael Triscaro on the inside being in no man's land, but when you're in the back like this, there are no friends. Nobody wants to work with anybody. Everybody's desperate just to try to claw their way to the front. And, I mean, all of a sudden now, Dawson, one green-white checkered attempt, and we know how these work in PGR. I think that if you're not inside the top 15 here, you've got to probably not be feeling like you're in a good spot right now. But for the guys inside of the top 10, definitely still an opportunity here to try to make up a little bit of ground in what will be the final 2 laps here in Heat Race 1.
That's the important part of it, the final 2 laps. The caution will not be thrown here. Let's preface the green-white checkered / overtime procedure here for PGR, and it will be in effect this week. 1 green-white checkered attempt in these heat races. The race will run out, and the transfer spots will be determined by post-race review if they need to. And again, back in February, we had heat races where that applied, and we had heat races where that didn't apply. But nonetheless, it again is going to be the similar rules package this time around. This race will be allowed to finish under the green flag. So Smrecker will lead them back to green. That's Devin Smrecker. He's had a really good effort in this heat race, arguably his strongest PGR showing to date. In that 26, he continues to run up front. He'll be the lead car choosing here in just a moment. Casey Sprinkle runs right behind him in second for the McCullough Motorsports Group. Heard some chatter about him being on the potential underdogs list coming into this week. A multi-time winner over McCullough Motorsports promotion races. He'll run second here. Yaroslav Donskoy and Eugene Moskanov, a pair of teammates, run third and fourth. After that big run on the outside, saw the 18 and the Ilya Nikitin machine come forward. It'll be Cole Larson that restarts in 5th with Nikitin in 6th. James Waring, the heat sponsors, all the way back up to 6th all of a sudden, or 7th rather, all of a sudden. He'll start from the 7th position or wherever he decides to choose here on this restart. So for James, a big recovery drive. He started on the pole, led some laps, dropped to the back, got involved in a crash, got right back to the front, and is now in position to advance. Sam Hurst runs right behind him in the 8th spot, followed by the British driver in Jack Mace. That's the car that runs 9th. Mace was out looking in a moment ago. Now he's on the inside. Matt Lee, who was involved in 2 crashes just a few moments ago, he's back to 10th. Last 2 guys in transfer spots are Nick Herblett and Josh Cruz. Cars out right now. Nathan Harper is 14th. That's one of the cars we had our eyes on. Michael Triscaro is 18th. Sean Boundy is 19th. Axel Smith is 21st. And that's just a couple of cars. And Andrew Harris as well, a guy that started multiple marquee events. He appears to be out of this race, so one already going home in the 87, and a couple of others who, as we get ready to choose, may not make their way into Sunday's feature or even race another day at all.
And for the heat races, always seems like some guys that, going into the race, you said, oh yeah, easily going to make it through to at least the last chance qualifiers, end up with the heartbreak nights and early, but then you get some of the wild cards. And I don't know if that's many of the guys inside the top 10. I mean, average I rating inside of the top 10 right now, over 4,500. So the cream always seems to rise to the top at the end of these super speedway races. But man, what about this, Dawson? Look how many drivers just took the top. I mean, first guy to take the bottom here is all the way back to, it looks like, I think that's Jack Mace in the 07. I mean, he just gained probably about 10 spots because of that. Excuse me, that is Jack Mace.
And this is going to wildly shuffle the order here inside the transfer spots because a number of drivers who are outside looking in are going to see this as an opportunity to, at the very least, attempt the bottom lane. And we have seen this bottom lane just not go very well in the restarts. But look at the combination it has now. We'll reset the choose for you. The top, I believe, 8 cars on the racetrack all chose the outside lane, and maybe the top 9 cars. I'm counting it here back towards the Sam Hurst machine. I think he was the last one to take the top. That would be the top 8 cars on the racetrack that all took the top side here for this last restart. Jack Mace says, thank you very much. He goes from 10th to the inside of the front row. Matt Lee was outside the top 10. He goes to 2nd on the inside. Josh Cruz was outside looking in. Jesse Calloway outside looking in. Josh Newman, amongst others, going to the bottom. Triscaro, Boundy, Hollum, all go to the bottom here and gain a ton of valuable track position and put these guys on the outside in a bind where they now have to decide, do I go 3 wide to try to keep my hopes alive?
Well, you better believe they're going to be going 3 wide, but You know, I'm surprised, Dawson, that the guys outside of the top 5 decided to still pick the top. Mainly because you think about it, with this being the last restart, the chances of a caution probably pretty high with how aggressive these guys are going to be. Rather a wreck, not necessarily the caution. We know we're going to go green for these 2 laps, but the reason I mention that, I just think this is a safer bet for Jack Mace. Maybe the inside doesn't roll that well, but even if not, I mean, you know the restart's going to be at least decent. You probably maintain at least about even with the top 5 rows. Whatever way it shakes up, though, going to be very interesting to see who wins Heat Race 1 here tonight at Talladega.
Devin Sprecher has been the dominant car the second half of this race, and he will lead the field to the Simrat Market restart zone for the final time. We will run it out. Green flag. It will finish right here. Sprecher gets a monster jump on the outside, but the line is not connected. Bottom's got to get connected quick. They're going to bail instead. Lee bails to the top. More cars bailing inside to outside, and Jack Mace is left with only 1 car behind him in Cruz. And look at what he's doing here, Austin. He's going to side draft up in turns 1 and 2 and try to run the middle lane. This is extremely smart from Jack Mace off 2.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a choice. He continues to watch this outside line like a freight train, just absolutely moving by right now. But up front, how about it? Devin Sprecher just a lap and a half away from winning his first PGR race here tonight at Talladega. But here we go. The inside now has finally evened things out. The momentum starting to charge up once again. There's the big block from Matt Lee. He's going to go all the way to the bottom of the racetrack. And now all of a sudden, the inside starting to charge as they enter the trial will come into the white flag.
They'll see the white flag this time. Devin Sprecher leads the field back to the white flag. 1 lap to go in Heat 1. Here comes the bottom. Matt Lee, Jack Mace. Here comes the middle. Sean Bounty makes the big move to the center. Mace covers it. Lee's left with no help. Neither is Josh Newman as they work through turns 1 and 2. Don's going loose on the bumper of Josh Cruz as they try to get the outside going. It's going to create a big run for one of these 2 lines. Which one's it going to be here off turn 2? The mad scramble down the Alabama Gang super stretch. Nathan Harper, the run from the back. He's in the middle lane, trying to get inside the transfer spots. Back to 3 for the final time. They'll jockey one last time through 3 and 4. Donskoy top to bottom in the 18. Sprecher down to cover. Crash. Larson, Triscaro, Smith. They pile up in the transfer positions. All 4 for the final time. They crash again. Josh Newman crashes. This is going to be all kinds of reviews coming up, but in the trial of the final time, Donskoy, can he make the move? No, he cannot. Devin Sprecher, what a run. He wins Heat Race number 1.
Oh my goodness, boy, was that crazy or what? These guys were 3 wide. They may have even been 4 wide towards the back of the pack. That got absolutely insane just over the course of the last half a lap. And it looks like the official margin of victory here, Dawson. We'll see it once we get the results. But somewhere just over about 0.6 of a second, 0.06 rather. So this was a close finish here in Heat 1. And man, I'll tell you what, for Sprecher, that's got to feel pretty good to start your week off with a win in your Heat race. And for Yaroslav Donskoy, I got to think he's got comeback of the race after getting involved in that wreck earlier. Got a break with a caution and just kept grinding to get his way back inside the top 3 before it was all said and done. And last man in the podium, guess who? Jack Mace picked the bottom on that restart and took full advantage of it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the drives of the week so far, at least in this opening heat race, is Jack Mace, who was about 11th off turn 2 and ends up 3rd with a big run to the bottom as he managed to cut the middle run of Sean Bounty. Sean Bounty, by the way, good run for him too. Started shotgun on the field in 30th and advances to 4th and advances into the LCQ, the first man into the LCQ. But the winner and the man that gets to do the donuts is Devin Sprecher, and I think this is well earned. He looked cool, calm, collected, and confident. His best PGR run to this point is going to put him up front or towards the front of the top 24 race here later on in the week.
And as he gives a little virtual smoke to the fans, makes me wonder what the drivers coming up in Heat Race 2 thought of and if they took any notes from what we just saw in this heat race in terms of which lanes were dominant. It seemed like early on both lines had some momentum, but boy, as we got towards, I'd say, the back quarter of this race, I mean, it was all about the high side. Everybody was taking right rears, bailing on the inside, but even so, we also saw a little bit of crafty maneuvers, if you will, from Jack Mace there to try to hold his position. Once they got some help, I think they proved that the inside can still work, Dawson, but you've got to make sure you have the right help down there to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're writing down in the notebook what Jack Mace did on the backstretch, and that was move that line up to kind of stall out the run a little bit, at least create a little bit of an opportunity for that bottom to start to go. I think what Mace did, you're going to see a lot of drivers replicate that. throughout the week. Let's take a look at the unofficial results. Again, there is a lot of review to be done after this first heat race. In fact, we're getting word of a potential already change in the transfer spots. In fact, we'll give you that in just one moment. Actually, we'll go ahead and give that to you now to reflect it in the results. Ilya Nikitin, the final man in the LCQs, has been given a penalty for the last lap incident, so that 12th place finish will be null and void. James Waring is the final man in the LCQs from 13th. So move everyone up a spot. Nikitin unofficially finishes 12th, but it will be James Waring that captures that final transfer spot. Let's say about the top 10 first, though. Devin Sprecher, heck of a drive. He wins this race. We'll talk to him very briefly here in just one moment before we get into heat race number 2. Yaroslav Donskoy had a great drive as well, made almost a race-winning move. He'll finish second. He'll take on a spot in the feature and the top 24 shootout later in the week. And so will Jack Mace, the man who started and led laps in last year's SummerSlam 499, does it again from third. Sean Boundy finally sees a PGR marquee event heat race go his way. He'll finish fourth in this one. A good drive for Casey Sprinkle in fifth. He'll race Saturday also, alongside Justin Harris in sixth, involved in a crash. Same with Josh Cruz in seventh. Two cars bruised, battered, but advancing in sixth and seventh. The story of the night, Nathan Harper was tail end of the longest line with 4 to go, advances in 8th. Eugene Mozganov advances in the 9th spot, and Jesse Calloway finishes 10th.
Matt Lee talked about, obviously, the wreck that he was involved in towards the back half of the race, but he was able to recover and get one of those last couple of transfer positions into the LCQs. He finishes in 11th here tonight in Heat 1. You mentioned, obviously, the change there with Ilya Nikitin getting put back. For now, we'll call it 12th just for the results, but we know that James Waring is actually going to be moved up a spot, so he will be the last man to advance through into the LCQs. Finishing back in that 14th spot, going to be Chris Taylor. Daniel Lawless in 15th here tonight, but it's Jan Michael Chavez, another driver who comes up just a few spots short. He finishes in 16th. Michael Goodwin back in 17th. In the 18th spot, Axel Smith Jr., one of the drivers you thought for sure was going to advance through at least to the LCQ, if not straight into the feature. Not able to get the job done. He finishes 18th. Nick Herblett finishes in that 19th spot, and it's Michael Childs rounding out the top 20.
And some big drivers not advancing forward, finishing outside of the top 20. Tom Dixon in 21st. Sees his run come to an end. So does Sam Hurst in the 22nd spot. Joe Sullivan goes 23rd with Ben Hallam in 24th. Josh Newman in 25th. And then a couple heavy hitters that see their runs end after the crash in turn 4. Cole Larson finishes 26th and will not advance forward in this event. And neither will series owner Michael Triscaro. He'd started both of the 499 milers to this point. He will not start Sunday's race. He's eliminated in 27th. Matthew Cummins finishes 28th with Alan Martin 29th and Andrew Harris involved in a late caution in 30th. We do want to try to talk to the race winner here from heat race number 1 if we do have a chance. I know he was standing by in his team channel, so we'll see if we can get a quick word with a driver who won heat race number 1 and arguably his strongest run in a PGR race to this point, the 26 of Devin Sprecher, the winner of heat race number 1 of the SummerSlam 499. Devin, it's Austin and Dawson, the broadcast booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, I do. What's going on, guys?
Well, not too much. Take us through this drive. Again, we've seen you in a number of these marquee events in your PGR career, and we've seen you even start a couple of them in the feature. But I felt like tonight was a big breakthrough moment for you. A really good drive, led a bunch of laps the second half of this race, and complete the defensive move on the front stretch to win the race. Take me through it from your perspective, the drive that you had tonight in Heat 1.
Yeah, it was a philosophy change, you know. Every time I get into one of these big races, or I'm trying to get into one of these big races through heats, LCQs and stuff, I'm always hanging at the back waiting for the wreck, and I usually lose the draft, or the big wreck doesn't happen, or I'm a part of it. One of those three. So tonight, you know, knowing we had a reset, it was just all out. And if I want to be a factor on Sunday, I'm not going to learn anything riding in 30th. So went up there, was aggressive. I didn't try to do anything too egregious. You know, coming to the checker was coming to the checker. But man, what a blast when we had some green flag racing. I don't know what happened on most of those cautions, but I feel like up front there was a lot of really smart driving going on. So I am so pumped to be into the top 24 showdown. I'm so pumped to be on in the big event on Sunday. It's been a little while since I made one of these, and to come out of here with a heat win was already above my expectations. So. But we're not stopping here. We have a tribute car for a dear friend of ours at Murphy eSports. Greggy Morgan passed away a couple of weeks ago. Really cool guy, wonderful guy. He's he's been with Murphy eSports since the beginning, and we threw it back to our first car with him that we ran a couple years ago. So that's what we're running for the SummerSlam 499, and this whole thing's just about Greggy Bonepool.
Well, look, real quick here. You win Heat 1. You're in the feature in the top 24 race, like you said. Now you kind of get to kick your feet up just a little bit and watch some racing the rest of this week before you get going in that race to set the grid. Kind of what's the game plan the rest of the weekend? And, how could you maybe make this one better and put yourself in victory lane on Sunday?
Yeah, I would never advise anybody to use Carb Cup as practice, but I've been working on my side drafting and stuff there the last couple of days, and I'd like to shout out everybody involved who made this setup. Phenomenal setup. The gearing was just perfect. It handled awesome, and it really provided some good racing tonight. So I think the main is going to be an incredible race. When you get the best of the best there with a setup like this and a package like this. I know the first half of the race it kind of looked like what we see with the next gen car, two dominant lanes, and I think you'll see a lot more of that on Sunday with the skill of the drivers involved. But plenty of opportunity to go 3 wide. So I am going to watch some heat, study some of the best. God forbid, do a little Carb Cup and get ready for Saturday.
Well, before we let you go really quick, Devin, obviously a winner here in Heat Race 1, so an opportunity to sit in victory lane. The first man to sit in victory lane this week. Any thank yous or shout-outs you'd like to give here?
Yep, thank you to my boss man, my best friend, Brian Murphy, running under his banner. No one else I want to race with. The whole racing, the Cardano race team community. Like I said, we lost a good friend in Greg Morgan, otherwise known as Bonepool. He was a pioneer in the Cardano space, in the Husky space. So this is all about him, thinking about him, his family, his girlfriend, and we're gonna try and keep collecting checkered flags for him. We have Adam Garza in the second heat and the second tribute car, and Lord knows he's way better than I am. So we'll see what he can do.
Devin, thanks for your time. Congrats on the Heat 1 victory. Go enjoy it. Go celebrate. We'll see you for the top 24 race and then for the 499 on Sunday.
See you Saturday, boys.
As we start to wrap up Heat Race number 1, it's going to be a very quick turnaround here for Heat Race number 2, so we'll keep it brief. A chaotic ending to what was a calm start to the race in Austin. I think that's going to be a pattern here as we get into Heat Race number 2.
Yeah, and normally we always say when you have a couple of heat races on a night, one of them's a little bit more calm, one of them's a little bit more aggressive, but that one had both. Calm at the start, aggressive by the end, but I'll tell you what, Devin Smecker, I think he's lying to us, Dawson. He said, don't prepare Carb Cup. I might have to go try that strategy. He did pretty good there, especially towards the end, and he is definitely going to be one of the drivers to keep an eye on in the big feature on Sunday.
So we will transition now to Heat Race number 2. Stay with us. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back for continuing coverage of the 3rd annual PGR eSports SummerSlam 499. The second of 2 heat races tonight is on tap. It's coming up in just a few minutes. Stick with us. We'll be right back from Talladega.
I played a couple of simulators, and this was like very responsive. Especially the hydraulics and stuff, the motion and stuff was really, really on point.
But you feel like you're really driving. It feels real.
It adds so much to the experience. It's just really, really cool.
It was pretty awesome.
One heat down, 7 more to go as the third annual PGR eSports SummerSlam 499 rolls on from the virtual Talladega Super Speedway. We want to welcome you back in to the virtual Talladega as we get ready for heat race number 2. Some big names going home in heat 1. It was a lot of chalk inside the top 12 that made it through, and some more big names to come here in heat race number 2. Before we get going in this second heat race, we do want to continue to thank those that continue to support PGR Esports and the SummerSlam 499, including title sponsor That Towing Company and Chris Blanchard for all that he continues to do for PGR Esports, but also for the PGR SummerSlam 499. Also want to thank CCR and the Flying Aces, Chris Carter, a big contributor to this year's SummerSlam 499, and you'll see CCR aboard a number of race cars this week as well as we move on through this event. But specifically for heat race number 2, and we do want to thank our heat sponsor for this heat as well, that being Colorectal Cancer Awareness in honor of Jay Smart. And we will begin to transition here into heat race number 2. We'll tell you more about that in just a moment as the drivers get ready to go under the green flag for the first time. We'll welcome you back into the booth briefly, though, and we'll bring back my broadcast partner here for heat race number 2. You'll also hear from Tyler Vickery later from Pit Road, but I'll bring back my broadcast partner here for heat race number 2, Austin Green. Austin, heat 1 saw a little bit of both, a little bit of calm, a little bit of chaos, and now we enter heat number 2. Some big names on tap, some guys that have started these marquee races before and now look to make their way into the SummerSlam 499. What do you think they're thinking after they watched heat 1?
You know, I'm not really sure, Dawson. I think there's a lot of different thoughts. I think the drivers that came into this race maybe making their first start, the underdogs, if you will, are thinking to themselves, okay, well, we just watched Smecker get the win. Why can't we? And at the same time, you've got veterans saying, man, even if we work good together, there's still a chance that we could get into a big accident up front. Heat 1 had it all. Can't wait to see what's in store for Heat 2. But you mentioned a mix of big names, more underdogs in this heat race as well. I look at, a couple of the EPI drivers that we're going to see throughout this heat race, and then also just some of the money racing veterans in general. Larry McDonald, going to be curious to see what he can do. David Flanagan for the Jack Shack. Good mix of field, good mix of drivers in this field, going to make for some interesting racing to decide the final heat here tonight.
Not as much time before we go green, so we'll briefly at least tell you about the format. You'll hear about the payouts for this week throughout the week as we continue along. But the format is as follows for this heat race. It will feature 30 drivers. The top 3 finishers will advance not only into Sunday afternoon's feature. Again, that's right. If you did not watch Heat 1, the top 3 go straight through to the feature. There are no duels in this year's event. They'll go straight to the feature, and they'll also advance to a top 24 pole shootout race on Saturday night that will set the opening 12 rows of the grid. 4th through 12th in this race advance to Saturday's last chance qualifiers that will take place just before that top 24 race. Everyone else goes home. The stakes are bigger this year than they've ever been in the SummerSlam 499. Let's head down trackside and meet the starters for heat race number 2 as we get ready to go green once again from Talladega in the PGR SummerSlam 499. On the pole for this second heat race, the defending PGR Light Series champion, representing the Jack Shack with the black, white, and blue colors aboard net 16, Matthew David Wood will start from pole position. Alongside him, his teammate for the Jack Shack, the 84 of Justin Melicar. Row 2, we'll see Matthew Boniface come alongside Larry Mack. Larry McDonald, new colors for Larry tonight in the 80, representing Jay Smart in tribute to him tonight. Row 3, Dylan Ast in the all black and gold Chevrolet. He'll go from 5th. Alongside him, it's Trevor Huff in car 54 in 6th. Row 4, going to be Adam Garza, who led laps of the PGR 500 back in February. He'll start from 7th. And Nash Brambilla for Team PGR will start from position 8. And rounding out the top 10, it's the Jack Shack's David Flanagan, looking to make a start in this year's SummerSlam 499. Alongside Nikita Lyubimov, he'll start from 10th.
And back in row number 6 here tonight on the inside, it's going to be Braden Walters in that number 7 machine. He'll have one of the forwards starting on his outside. That is Alexander Kroenke. We've seen Kroenke in a few of these events before. A little bit of work to do, though, starting from that 12th spot. Zachary King, always one of the fan favorites in that 51 Ford Mustang. He'll start on the inside of row number 7 tonight. To the outside of him, the number 99 Coca-Cola machine. That is Payson Lindsay. Back in row number 8, it's going to be Mike Davenport for Team PGR starting in 15th. Kurt Quist in the 28 machine. He will start to the outside in 16th. Row 19 going to be Gage Wenzel and Taylor Peacock. And then the last 2 drivers starting inside the top 20 for heat race number 2. Tommy Janikowski and Hunter Azell.
Some pretty big names towards the tail end of this field. Back on row 11, it's going to be Brandon Bromfoot in the 22, a PGR veteran. Alongside him, Brent Garber in the 58, channeling Denny Hamlin with that paint scheme. Row 12, going to be Barrett Polimas. He led with 2 laps to go in the PGR 500. He'll start 23rd in this heat race. Alongside him, it's Richard Driscoll in the 26 in 24th. Row 13, Jonathan Cofield in the 58 will start alongside Frank Chavez in car 23, making another attempt at a PGR marquee event. Wesley Street starts from 27th. We've seen him throughout the recruitment process. Matthew Francis, the Red Bull car, goes from 28th. Last 2 cars on the grid, Shea Tarleton in the all-pink, white, and black number 20, alongside Miles Bagley, the driver for Nightmare Esports in the Chick-fil-A Chevrolet. Well, we'll start to get into how this race will line up for heat race number 2. Again, it is 30 laps in the next-gen car, 100% fuel, unlimited tire sets, a fast repair in the pits. And that was important because a lot of drivers use that fast repair in that opening heat race. A custom fixed setup on board these cars provided some seriously fun racing in that opening heat race. 1 green-white checkered, only 1 in this second heat tonight. Before we get underway, I want to tell you a little bit more about the presenting sponsor of heat race number 2. Tonight, we are proud to honor the memory of Jay Smart by supporting the DCI Pancreatic and GI Oncology Fund at Duke Cancer Institute. A QR code will appear on screen throughout tonight's second heat race. Please consider scanning it and making a donation to support colorectal cancer research and patient care. Every contribution, no matter the amount, can make a difference. Thank you for helping us honor Jay's memory and support this important cause. You'll see those colors aboard Larry McDonald's car, and you have to imagine here before we go green, Austin, for Larry Mack, this would be a truly special night if he's able to get the job done.
Yeah, it really would be, and obviously Larry running it for a great cause. We've seen Larry do kind of special paint schemes like this before, and he's going to be one of the drivers that's in contention, obviously one of the veterans on the money racing scene. Finds himself starting inside of the top 5, and you said it, Dawson, if he could get that car to victory lane, how special of a way to start the week, the SummerSlam, that would be for him.
He'll start from 4th. We'll see what he can do. Again, he is that purple, blue, and white branded Chevrolet on the outside, sporting the banner for Team Dega Pros in this second heat race. Heat 1 had a little bit of everything. Some guys going home, some guys moving on that we expected. And what will Heat 2 provide? It is an all Jack Shack front row for this second heat race. Matthew David Wood, the defending Light Series champ, and Justin Melikar will bring the field to the Simrat Market restart zone for the first time in heat race number 2. 12 have moved on. 12 more will join them. Who will it be from heat 2? We're underway again. Green flag from Talladega.
Field 2x2 as they work on to the Alabama gang back straightaway for the first time here in heat race number 2. 2x2 they run, but right now it's the outside line with just a little bit of an advantage as Justin Melikar leads the way. They climb the banking into turn 3. Remember, these cars take about a half to 3/4 of a lap to get up to full pace, but these guys are not going to wait that long to begin the pushing and shoving. How about on the inside? Matthew Boniface with a huge surge of momentum. He's going to actually push Matthew Wood back clear of the lead. He jumps up to the high side. Still 2x2, though, no 3 wide as we complete lap 1 here in heat 2.
Boniface trying to nose ahead at the line, but it will be the driver known as MDW, Matthew David Wood, on the outside lane with help from his teammate up there, Justin Melikar. Inside is Boniface and then Dylan Ast, a guy we've seen try a couple of these marquee events. They are followed in line by the white, blue, and black Price Chopper Chevrolet. That's Adam Garza, a new number aboard that car this year. number 1 aboard the Garza machine, although he is the 21 aboard your timing and scoring. MDW leads back to turn 3. He continues to bring the field around this racetrack, and it's very similar to heat race number 1 in the fact that they are 2x2. Melikar will turn left. He'll take his first shot out front. He'll go right to the nose of his teammate Matthew Wood here off turn 4. Boniface, a good soldier for him there, will continue to lead the bottom, but it's very, very similar to the way heat race number 1 started. Calm, cool, collected, 2 wide to this point.
And it just makes me wonder, if you aren't one of the drivers that, you're in this heat, you saw what happened at heat 1, do you say, okay, I know it's going to get really aggressive at the end of this race, so let me go now. Let me try to get the track position, and then maybe not have to work quite as hard at the end of this thing. But as you said, 2x2, I think everybody a little bit scared to be that first car out of line. If you don't get the help, it is a quick ticket to the back of the lead pack. Big surge of momentum, though, once again on the outside. It's a couple of Chevys right now that are trying to roll their way. 3 cars clear now. The 84 of Justin Melikar brings Matthew Wood and Larry McDonald. None of them going to jump to the bottom. They stay 2x2 as you go further out back. Now we are going to see one of those cars jump to the bottom. Matthew Wood qualified on the pole and still runs up front with 3 laps complete.
And so far, so good for these Jack Shack teammates up front. We knew that these cars would be competitive this week coming into these heat races. They've been looking forward to this event this year, and so far they're flexing muscle. Melikar will get back to the lead on the outside of the Light Series champ Matthew David Wood. Back at the banking of turns 1 and 2. McDonald and Boniface have been pretty good soldiers so far. You question how long that will last as you're on board with Adam Garza, 4th in line on the bottom of the racetrack. You question how long that will last. For now, at 4 of 35, plenty of time to go in the race. You're in a good spot if you're one of those 2 cars. Stay in line. What we saw at the end of heat race 1, things can get wild. You have to choose on a dime whether or not you're going to push the guy in front of you. And when it came down to it, it was a lot more take than give in that race. For now, though, again, this is as calm as it will be all night. As MDW continues to put on a show here at the front of the field, but Matthew Boniface still an ass. They're not going away. The bottom lane, a little bit more competitive here in this second heat so far.
And for Matthew David Wood here, one of the things I was noticing, Dawson, as you were giving that update, look at the way his hands are on the steering wheel. First of all, we're at a super speedway. He's using an F1 wheel, but he doesn't even have both hands sitting on the steering wheel. He's got both of them right on the left side. Very interesting that he's able to hold that car so smooth at the front of the pack while driving that way. But
trouble. A couple of cars around. Garza's in the wall. Brambilla's involved. Multi-car crash. Cars still hitting the outside wall. The big one in the middle of the back straightaway. 10 cars fly apart as half the field goes spinning.
Smoke everywhere, and this took out a lot of big-time favorites. Not sure the extent of the damage. But as you said, Adam Garza, Nash Brambilla, they're still wrecking up here towards the front as these guys try to get their cars back going in the right direction. The 97. The 83 looks like one of the 50 cars. It might be the 58. Was wondering if that was Brent Garber, who we saw also involved in this one. And oh man, chaos here in the first caution, which came a little bit earlier than what we saw in heat race 1, Dawson.
Yeah, it was back around the Adam Garza machine that this thing got triggered. Nash Brambilla also one of the first cars involved in this one as well, as I'm getting my first looks at it here. From the overhead camera, at least on my end. Again, it was triggered towards the middle of the pack, and I wonder if it was pretty similar to what we saw in Heat Race 1 with some stack-ups. It does not appear to be the case. Adam Garza gets into a compromising position there, whether he was trying to split to the middle or not. He ends up in the center of Brambilla and Ast and triggers a monster crash. I mean, I see at least 12 cars involved. Brambilla, Garza, Lindsay, that's Payson Lindsay, Misael Flores, Shea Tarleton, Brandon Broadfoot, Tommy Janikowski, Mike Davenport, Taylor Peacock, Jonathan Cofield, Wesley Street, and multiple others. Zachary King is involved in this in the 51. And this is 12-plus cars, the biggest incident of the night, and it was just 6 laps in.
Yeah, Zachary King talked about him being one of the fan favorites and a driver who did really good in the last season of PGR Light. Thought for sure he'd have a good run here tonight. And unfortunately, when you get collected in an early incident, it is not going to set you up very well for the rest of the race, but I would say you'd rather it happen early. Unfortunately, though, these guys are going to have to waste their fast repair. Check it out, though, here from the onboard view. Zachary King, he sees the wreck, trying to check up, but as Garza was coming back down once the wreck started, just nowhere to go. And he takes a pretty big shot off of that inside safer barrier. There was another group of 3 cars just a little bit ahead right there that you see also with some pretty heavy contact to the inside retaining wall. So you said it, Dawson. The big one here early, all in all, it collects probably about 8 to 15 cars.
Yeah, again, I saw at least 12, I think, get involved in this one. Zachary King appears to have some major damage. He is the only one we're being indicated so far that has the meatball flag. And what that means is he will have to come to pit road and address the damage. Now, he does have a fast repair, so it's by no means a night ender for Zachary King, but he will have to come to pit road and take that fast repair a lot earlier than I would imagine that he wanted to. So for Zach King, an early setback. For a lot of guys, an early setback. I mean, Dylan Ast was up front early in this race. Adam Garza was up front early in this race. Brambilla, Lindsay, Davenport all started towards the front of the field and are now in a behind the 8 ball type position where a number of them are going to have to at least come and fix damage and get that damage addressed on pit road. And they're in a similar situation to drivers we saw in Heat 1. Josh Cruz comes to mind. Nathan Harper comes to mind. Jack Mace comes to mind. Guys that got involved in crashes early that they then had to address later in that heat race and put them in a desperate spot.
Yeah, desperate spot to say the least. And, I think Adam Garza, obviously probably one of the top 3 drivers that were favored to not only advance through, but win this race coming into heat number 2 here tonight. Now, obviously, he's not out of it. The beauty of having that fast repair is, again, that you're not done, but obviously you lose all your track position and going to have to work your way from the back to the front. But we've still got a decent amount of laps here in heat race number 2. We mentioned that caution fell earlier than what we saw in heat race number 1. But one thing that hasn't changed, some of the teamwork from the Jack Shack up front. How about Matthew Wood and Justin Melikar? 1-2. We'll see how they decide to line up for the choose cone here for this restart. Then you've got Larry McDonald, Trevor Huff, back in row 2, Matthew Boniface and David Flanagan. The last 2 drivers inside of the top 6. And as far as some of the biggest movers go, how about Barrett Paulhemus? He was another one of the favorites coming into this one. He has picked up 12 spots from where he started this race at. Brent Garber in the 58 thought he may have got a piece of that last wreck, but instead he has also picked up 10 spots from where he started this race at.
That's the 12 drivers in transfer spots right now. We will continue to list out the top 12. Again, 3 go directly to Sunday's feature, but also to Saturday night's top 24 shootout race. 9 more beyond that 4th through 12th go to the last chance qualifiers. Choose cone here at the line is in effect. Again, if you missed heat 1, we'll be utilizing the choose cone this week in every race. You have to choose by the start finish line. The cone marker itself is not on the speedway on the iRacing.com scan. So we are using the middle A in Talladega, the word that comes across the start finish line. That is essentially your cone. If you drive over it trying to choose one way or the other, you will get an end of line penalty, very similar to the NASCAR Cup Series. If you drive over the cone, you get a penalty. It will be the same this week. On the choose, no surprise, the 2 Jack Shack teammates both take the top. Larry McDonald will join them. And then the differences begin. Trevor Huff, first time we've seen him in clean air. He'll take the bottom of row 1. Matthew Boniface, who's been pretty comfortable down there, I would say, goes to the inside of row number 2. Braden Walters is going to join them on the inside lane. And then Alexander Kroenke after them, and Barrett Paulhemus, a pair of cars that started this year's PGR 500. In fact, Paulhemus, again, was the leader at one point with 2 laps to go on the final restart. He knows how to get to these events and get in position to win them. He's a car I have my eyes on as well from the 9th position.
And we'll have to see what happens here as you're on board with Nikita Lyubimov, one of the drivers that we talked about coming into this race. Qualified inside the top 10, and he has been running there ever since. So he'll be in a pretty good position for this restart on that outside line. Now, kind of similar to Dawson to what we saw in the first heat. I don't feel like the top has become the most dominant line just yet. We've seen kind of both lines shuffling back and forth, but maybe still a slight edge to that high side. I think that's why we saw, obviously, the 2 Jack Shack teammates line up there. Larry McDonald, David Flanagan join them as well. So definitely still some confidence, or lack of, I should say, for drivers that do want to get on the bottom side. But, when we get to some of the heats where we see guys like Malik Ray, Daniel Falkingham, I think they're going to say, you know what, if you guys are so scared to choose the bottom, we'll take it, we'll get lined up, and we're going to go right to the front. Be curious to see if that changes the dynamic as we go throughout the rest of the week.
So time for the first restart of the night as we get back towards the Simrat Market restart zone. It's been a good start so far for the Jack Shack teammates. Matthew David Wood continues to lead this race on the outside of row number 1. First time we'll get back under the green flag. First restart of heat 2. Green flag goes back in the air, outside off and running. The Jack Shack teammates timed it up. Hand out the window for MDW. Melikar right to his back bumper. The most coordinated restart we've seen so far. And actually their help gets their first 2. Larry Mack, David Flanagan both jump in line. Top 4 on the outside. Starting to try to get rallied up when the field gets back off turn 2.
And this is the tough part because the inside obviously getting side drafted already. If you can't get a good restart, you're definitely not going to have any momentum to really work with on the backstretch. But they do get 4 cars tandem up in both lanes, so they're going to hold relatively even by the time they get to turn 3, though. Guess who? The 16 machine Matthew David Wood still finds himself out in front, getting pushed by the 84 of Justin Melikar just behind them. Larry McDonald, David Flanagan. You go even further back, about the 23 machine, starting to make his way back towards the front. Still 2x2 though, Dawson. Thought maybe we'd see a little bit of 3 wide. The only man that's been daring to try it has been the one of Adam Garza. Looks like he didn't get any sort of gun shyness even after being involved in the first caution.
And that doesn't surprise me at all. And I think you heard a few moments ago, Devin Smerecker said Adam Garza running with Air Group a little bit this week as well, that the mindset changed for him. And for Garza, I think you're kind of seeing that in real time. I think you saw that in real time both in February in the PGR 500 and in last year's SummerSlam 499, where you kind of saw a switch flip for Adam Garza from the first time we saw him in PGR. He's not unwilling anymore to make these big moves, and guys see that. Look at Nash Brambilla up to the outside behind Adam Garza now as they work up the banking of turn 3. Guys are not unwilling to go with him. They know now he's willing to make the move. He's willing to put himself out there, and other drivers see that, especially veterans of super speedway racing, and they're willing to go up there and work with Garza. They'll have to fade back in line. So again, nobody willing to move off that middle lane up towards the front of the field. It continues to be MDW out front of Justin Melikar. 25 laps to go in Heat 2, and now we're starting to see the trend we saw in the middle portions of that opening heat race, where the middle became the dominant line, but not for long. Polimas jumps to the bottom of the 79. He'll lead that bottom lane now as he is in front of Trevor Huff. Couple of cars working together, by the way. Polimas and Matt Boniface working together tonight on behalf of the EPI group.
And they're still trying to get this third lane going, but we're going to have a little bit of a shuffle up front. David Flanagan does the undercut on Larry McDonald, so he will now lead the charge on the inside. The 79, though, still pushing with all he's got right now. We talked about Barrett Polimas coming into this race, and right now he has shuffled himself up into that 4th spot. The 31 of Flanagan showing that you can make that bottom lane work if you've got the right pushers behind you. He's going to shuffle to the lead. Big move up top. He'll jump in front of his Jack Shack teammate.
Big trouble in the tri-oval. A huge multi-car accident as cars go hard into the outside safer barrier. They're going to come spinning to a stop. Davenport, Braunfoot, Flores, Lindsay again potentially. Brambilla may be involved in this. Frank Chavez is involved in this. A number of cars. Hunter Izell is driving away from the scene. A number of cars involved in this one. A multi-car accident. Broadfoot can't even hardly drive away from the scene.
Yeah, and this is the big one, part 2, before we even get to the halfway point here tonight at Talladega. So a couple of cars that haven't used a fast repair going to have to use it, and I think you noted it, Dawson, but a couple of the drivers involved in that first big wreck were involved in this one as well, so be curious to see how much damage they received as we will set up and go back and actually take a look at what happened here. They were 3 wide towards the back of the pack, and it almost just looked like a couple of cars initially got out of line. I believe one of them was Garber, the first car that kind of got turned out of shape, and then I think it snowballed from there. We'll play it back here, but, Dawson, looking at that one, as tight as they were running, the wreck doesn't start where they're 3 wide. It almost looks like maybe a slight stack up. The 83 gets into Garber, and then, boy, from there, it's just everybody getting collected with nowhere to go. Looks like one car that might have been the 93 actually got up in the air.
Yeah, there's a number of cars that had big hits in this. Even that, we may not know the damage extent on yet. I'm trying to figure out who that 93 is. It is not the 93 on the timing and scoring. So I'm trying to figure out exactly which car that is. But big hits for several cars. 6 cars have garnered the meatball flag under this caution. Wesley Street, Hunter Izell, Shea Tarleton, Dylan Ass, Brandon Broadfoot, and Frank Chavez. So you have to imagine that the white car is one of those cars. I thought it might have been the Tarleton car. It is not. So still trying to figure out exactly which car that was that took the big hit. Jonathan Cofield is involved in this as well. He was the green and white 58 that came into this as well. This is another one with about 12 cars involved, and attrition starting to take over now in the middle stages of this heat race.
Yeah, it certainly is. And for some of the guys that just were kind of on the leading edge of where that wreck started or did make it through, I'm curious to see what some of the onboard views look like here. So let's hop on board first. This is actually with Taylor Peacock, one of the other longtime money racing drivers. We don't see him race it as much anymore, but anytime he's out here, he's always competitive. Started in 18th and, just absolutely nowhere to go. Now, it was kind of squared up on the front bumper. Dawson, we know with these race cars, as long as you don't get suspension damage or engine damage, it's a lot more repairable than what we see in some of the other series. But, any way you shape it, that was a big wreck, and it's going to shuffle up track position for the back half of the lead pack once again.
And now the good thing about these heat races is that you do have a fast repair. By the way, that car I was trying to identify, it's actually Tommy Janikowski who takes the big hit where he goes almost up and over. He's not one of the cars that ended up with a meatball flag there. So he was able to come down and address the damage, get things fixed, get back on the racetrack, and stay on the lead lap. That's the good part for these drivers of having a fast repair in your pocket, is that you can come to pit road and essentially reset your race. Now, you don't get to do that more than once. So to use it in the middle stages with still a lot of racing left to go, not an ideal situation to be in. But nonetheless, it is a reset for a lot of those drivers that were involved right there in that caution flag. Speaking of, the penalty here will be given to Wesley Street in car 83 for the cause of caution. He'll be sent to the tail end of the longest line, although he has severe damage anyway as it is. We'll reset the field for you here off turn number 4 as heat race number 2 rolls on. David Flanagan continues to lead for the Jack Shack. He is the bright neon pink, blue, white, and black car at the center of your screen. But Barrett Polimas has driven forward to second, plus 21 for the driver of the 79, the red and black Ford Mustang. This is the same paint scheme, by the way, that we saw him run up front and nearly finish inside the top 5 in that race in February in. He'll choose second, Matthew David Wood third, Trevor Huff fourth, Justin Melikar fifth, Larry McDonald, Matthew Boniface, Nikita Lyubimov, Braden Walters, and Gage Wenzel round out the top 10. That's another driver from February. And then Alexander Kroenke and Zach King round out the transfer spots as of now. On the choose, a lot more splitting in this heat. I'll tell you, Austin, especially after we saw the top 8 all take the top in heat 1 late in that race. Some more splits in this race where guys are more willing to take the bottom. Polimas has done it a couple of times. Trevor Huff has done it a couple of times. Matthew Boniface has done it a couple of times. Of guys inside the top 8 that are not unwilling to go down there and test the waters and try to make the bottom work and take the extra few spots.
Yeah, and at some point you got to think to yourself, well, what's the safer option? Sure, maybe the top's faster, but if you're going to be 10, 15 cars back on that outside line, you're getting kind of towards that middle portion of the pack where there's a good chance you get involved in a wreck. Just take the inside. Even if you're running top 5, if the right guys are in that line, it can make progress. That's exactly what we saw during that last couple of laps there with, of course, Paul Hemus and Trevor Huff. Those two were tandemed up bumper to bumper. They pushed Wood clear. Be very curious to see, they pushed Flanagan clear, but I'd be very curious to see if they can get a good restart, how strong those two cars will be as we work down the backstretch on the first lap. A couple of guys behind them, too, to keep an eye on for maybe getting aggressive, trying to make that third lane work. Obviously, Adam Garza has been kind of the guy to lead the charge so far all night long. He's still towards the back, Dawson. We'll have to see if maybe he can link up with a guy like Nash Brambilla, maybe Jonathan Cofield, any of these drivers that want to go 3 wide and get to the front before we get too close to the end of this race.
Be really curious to see what a couple of the drivers outside the transfer spots do. Zach King is going to line up outside him now, thanks to the choose. Nash Brambilla, you talked about Garza, Davenport, Lindsay. Remember Payson Lindsay from the PGR 500 recruitment process as a guy that competed against some of the best. So I wouldn't count him out of this either as guys that I would expect to see in contention. By the way, attrition really taking hold in this race. Dylan Ast, Frank Chavez, Brandon Broadfoot, Hunter Ezell are all laps down. Wesley Street is sitting on pit road. He is already 2 laps down to the leaders at this point. To the Simrat Market restart zone we go. David Flanagan controls the restart proceedings. Green flag back in the air. And the Jack Shack cars timed it up well again. Now 3 of them in line on the outside. All 3 of their representatives are going to go right back to the lead. Trevor Huff bails on Polimas on the bottom. It'll be Polimas and his teammate Matthew Boniface on the bottom side with Braden Walters up the banking of 1 and 2. Simplification again off 2. And the bottom's got a couple of more takers out back. Richard Driscoll willing to jump down there, and a couple more cars coming out back may try to get the bottom working here.
Well, this isn't going to be very encouraging, though, for the guys up front. They're saying, hey, maybe they're lining up out back, but where is our help right now? Nothing to show for Paul Hemus. By the time they race into turn 3, he's still about 5 rows back, and it's all the 31 of Flanagan. He's got 2 of his Jack Shack teammates behind him. One of the bigger kind of team groups that you'll see, at least in one of the heat races. If those guys can stay top 3, that would be the best way they could possibly end this race. But bottom now going to start to fight back. And as we come to 20 laps to go, getting a little bit closer to the halfway point here in heat race number 2. Still 2x2 further back. Been watching for the blue and white machine of Adam Garza to jump out of line. He hasn't went yet. And at least as they stand at the moment, everybody content to run where they sit.
It's got a little bit of time here. Still 20 laps to go. And we saw in the opening heat race, you could drive from outside the transfer positions inside the top 3 very quickly. Think of Jack Mace on the final lap of that race, drove from about 11th on track to 3rd, so you can make up a lot of spots quickly. So for Garza, being patient here, but now the third line trying to start to work. That's about 8 rows deep in the field. A couple of cars are out there. Kurt Quist was one of them in the 28. Matthew Francis was the other one. They are going the wrong way here off turn 4. They did not get the helpers. I think they expected to get. Taylor Peacock thinking about it. Brent Garber thinking about it. Shea Tarleton maybe thinking about it. So a few cars starting to get more willing as 19 laps to go, end up on the board. You're on board with Francis. Now back up to the front. Flanagan continues to lead. This has been a flex of muscle from the Jack Shack group so far in this race. But here comes another try on the bottom from Paul Lemus and his teammate Boniface, and the rest of the cars lined up. Although now Paul Lemus bails. Off at 2, he finds a hole in line. And just like that, Matthew Boniface looks up and says, man, where's my teammate going?
Yeah, and I think he had to do that, though, just because of how hot temperatures were getting from how long they'd been pushing and still not able to get even. One thing you see that the 31 of Flanagan's doing, and this is an advantage of if you can string out a couple of cars single file on this middle line, you can wash up or go down and let that second car in line try to cool the engine temps a little bit. And that can obviously be huge. The more you can push, the more you can stay up front, but the more you push, the more that you start to heat up the temps, water and oil. So we'll have to see if these guys continue to go with that strategy. But right now, everything they're doing is working. The bottom lane cannot seem to draw back even. You mentioned the bailout there from Paul Hemus. Matthew Boniface, though, as it stands right now, currently down a couple of spots from where he started this race at, but still well inside the top 5.
And getting a nice push here from Braden Walters. That inside line finally starting to rally here down the Alabama Gang super stretch to get up alongside at least Huff. They're going to get to the left rear of Melikar, but no split from these 3 up front. And that is what is allowing this middle lane to be as good as it's been. In Heat 1, we saw a lot of drivers turn left. There were not a ton of teammates in that race, and a lot of drivers opted to turn left, go around the leader, get to the lead, and then allow that bottom lane to have a lot more energy than it has in this race. Out back 3 wide. Here comes Tarleton and Quist. They're the first 2 to attempt this outside lane the second time. They picked a pretty good time to do it with Flanagan, Wood, and Melikar all separated here towards the front. They're going to get one more helper. That's Matthew Francis. And they're making a little bit of headway up against the safer barrier. They're going to need a couple of more cars, though, if they're going to make this work by the time they get back to turn 3, and they're going to get them. Here's a couple more. Zach King, Gage Wenzel, and more cars jumping up. And all of a sudden now, multiple cars want to run the top side back to 3.
Yeah, and the more cars that jump up, the more that the drivers up front are enticed to try to go up there as well. I would say watch for the Jack Shack crew here to maybe try to shift up to that high side off of turn 4. Big run coming here. If they don't block it, that group is likely going to get there by the tri-oval. There's the move. Melikar is going to go to the high side. He blocks it. Flanagan and Wood follow. And if you ever wonder why having teammates is important, that is why right there. How about 3 wide, just about through the entire lead pack? 16 laps to go here at Talladega.
And it starts earlier in Heat 1, or in Heat 2 rather than it did back in Heat Race number 1. It's going to start with 16 to go still, as the outside continues to be led by the Lyubimov machine. That's the 33, the black kind of neon orange and pink car up against the outside safer bearer. He's going to bring a number of cars with him. Again, Wenzel, King, Tarleton, Quist, Francis, and now Garber in the outside lane. Middle is Huff, then Paul Hemus, then McDonald in the center, then Taylor Peacock, then Adam Garza, and then Mike Davenport. Bottom side, Boniface, Walters, Kroenke, and the 26 of Driscoll and Nash Brambilla. All 4, the Jack Shack cars start to split. This is the first moment for the Jack Shack cars, but they don't look quite as confident as they were early in this race. I think Justin Melikar saw that run coming and was trying to get the word to his teammates to come up and block that run against the wall. It was a little bit later than the last move, but all so far so good. What that did, it allowed the bottom lane to get some energy, and the Jack Shack cars are going to side draft here. The first time we've seen cars come off the wall to play the side draft.
Yeah, and as the intensity starts to pick up, they're kind of forcing the hand of the Jack Shack drivers in terms of what they're going to have to do if they want to maintain the lead. But I've been looking at some of the drivers really making moves towards the front. A couple of them right now inside of the top 10. One of those was Barrett Paul Hemus. But we're going to ride on board with another driver making his way towards the front. Richard Driscoll, currently sitting in that 13th spot. He's picked up 11 positions from where he started this race at, and he'll continue that climb to the front. But right now, the bottom starts to fade once again. Dawson, do you think this is just guys running out of temps, or is the middle finally starting to just surge again?
Well, the middle's surging because the Jack Shack cars have been moving top to middle to feed that line energy and to create a more intense side draft on the bottom lane to keep their control of the lanes, although this bottom lane's going to push through it a little bit here in turns 1 and 2. There's that side draft effect again off the end of the back straightaway. Again, that bottom line will start to fall back. The Jack Shack cars continue to lead the line. That's the middle 3. They're in the middle lane. They're going to drag Trevor Huff with them and Paul Emus, who you were just talking about a second ago. But the outside's got a new leader. Larry McDonald leads the outside, and the Shack cars have to cover it here off turn 4. They're going to have to move up. McDonald pushes on Melikar. That was all controlled there on the outside lane. Huff and Paul Emus now lead the middle, have an opportunity here. But McDonald bursts onto the scene, and he's in a position to transfer in. He'll go right to the middle. How about that move from Larry Mack?
You better believe Larry wants to get as much TV time for that beautiful paint scheme that he's got on board tonight as he possibly can. One thing I was going to point out, got to be careful here if you're the Jack Shack. I know those 3 cars have been working good together. They've been making these blocks work, but you start to do that too many times, you're going to make a lot of enemies really quickly. And of course, we have still got the last chance qualifiers and a couple other races to go before we get to the feature on Sunday. You do not want to get yourself in a position where nobody wants to work with you. The middle line surging now. Larry McDonald looks really good off of the front bumper of the 54 of Trevor Huff. They're going to push clear, but they will not go to the bottom. The middle line's been so dominant that they're going to stay right there. Melikar's out of shape. Oh, he's going to go to the outside fence. Big hit for Justin Melikar as the field flies apart down the short chute into the tri-oval.
You can see this one coming off turn 4. The run started to come back to the outside as those Jack Shack cars focused on Larry Mack and Trevor Huff and company. And Justin Melikar tried to throw it on the wall. They block off the run, and he ends up getting turned, trying to make the save. Multiple cars involved. I think this is going to be the end of Zach King's SummerSlam hopes. He's got severe damage on his 51 and multiple others involved. Janikowski is in another one. Gage Wenzel is in it. Lyubimov is in it as well, amongst others. Misael Flores appears to have some damage as well. And of course, the car we have to keep an eye on is Melikar in the 84, one of the dominant cars of the night.
Well, just talked about it. Dawson said, you know, what happens if you try to block too much? I'm not sure if that's what caused this or not. But we're going to go back, get a replay of exactly where things started to break out. I thought that this was one of those situations where just pushing in the corner was working, but then as soon as the 84 Melikar started to get unsettled, they just never really gave him a break to be able to catch it. So here we go. There's the 33 of Lyubimov, but you notice right there, I mean, the push looks pretty square, but I think it's just so much momentum out back, and yeah, that is the 84 trying to slot up. A little bit late, Dawson. I think the 33 felt like, hey, you guys have been doing this for a couple of laps. If you want to keep doing it, fine, but I'm not going to lift. And unfortunately, in this case, it leads to another accident.
Yeah, it's a tough break for Lyubimov, who had run a really good race, a really quiet but smart race up to this point. He finally got that outside lane to really go, and it looked like they were going to be able to split those cars up. Again, off turn 4 there, they had enough of a run. And again, you wonder, did they see the move late? Perhaps they see the run coming a little bit late and try to cover it, which again, it is well within their right to throw that block. And you're right, the push was square. It's trying to save the car after that, where Melikar gets out of shape and comes back around in front of multiple other cars. Again, there are several cars involved in this. Tommy Janikowski, he got lucky on the last one getting airborne. The luck has run out for him as he has got a meatball flag here. You're on board with Zach King. He had this thing missed. He ends up with a little bit of damage. Oh, but then it's the secondary when Janikowski gets turned that Zach King gets collected. And man, that is just gut-wrenching for King if that's the way his SummerSlam hopes end.
Yeah, the worst feeling too. I mean, he probably saw that going, man, how lucky am I? I made it through the first part. And unfortunately, as you just saw right there, not able to make it through the second part. Big hit for Janikowski too as he got turned back up into the outside safer barrier. This one, not the biggest wreck that we've seen so far tonight, but you already mentioned the attrition, Dawson. Had a couple of cars that were either laps down or potentially out of this race. May have to add a couple more to that tally after what is now our third caution in heat race number 2. But I mean, just looking at the race recap and kind of where we find ourselves right now, we've had 2 lead changes, not all that much, all things considered. But we're starting to close in on what will be less than 10 laps to go for this restart. I think we're getting to that point of what we saw in heat 1. All bets are off. This thing's going to get even more aggressive than what we've seen so far.
Well, I think this race just got blown wide open, too, because now really the only set of more than 2 teammates in this race just got split up. Of course, Melikar involved in the incident. Matthew David Wood has scored 5th. Flanagan scored 2nd. So all of a sudden, those 3 cars that had done such a good job at this point controlling the flow of the race are now split up in the front of the field. It's going to open some things up potentially like we saw in heat race number 1. Remember how well Nathan Harper, Matt Lee, Axel Smith, and those cars were working together And it opened up an opportunity for guys like Devin Sprecher to get to the lead late in that race, lead some laps, get out front, and end up winning that race. So we saw things open up late in Heat 1. We're about to see them open up here in Heat 2. We'll reset the running order for you. And again, this is such a cool moment. Larry McDonald leads the field here off turn 4. He will choose first, of course, carrying that gorgeous paint scheme aboard his number 80. So he'll be the control car on this restart. You have to imagine he'll choose the top. He'll have David Flanagan behind him. That's the 31 for the Jack Shack, the all-neon and black car behind him, one of the dominant cars of the night. Trevor Huff will restart third, and we have not said his name as much as I think he's warranted in this race. He's, again, been very controlled, very smart, and he runs third. Barrett Polimus runs in fourth. Matthew Wood runs back in the fifth spot. Rest of the top 10, Adam Garza, Taylor Peacock, Matthew Francis, Matthew Boniface, and Mike Davenport, who all of a sudden breaks back in to the transfer spot. So Garza, Francis, Boniface, Davenport all burst back in. Nash Brambilla, 11th. Braden Walters, 12th. Those are the drivers that would transfer in as of now. Some names that would be out. And we talked about a little bit about Payson Lindsay. Alexander Kroenke started the PGR 500. He would be out as of right now. So too would Nikita Lyubimov, who's run so well in this race. Justin Melikar in 22nd. Gage Wenzel made the PGR 500 recruitment process back in February. He's 25th. Zach King, a PGR regular, is 26th. So some cars in tough positions here. But as we get ready to go back under the green flag, Austin, again, you said it was going to open up, and those guys outside the transfer spots, I think, can take something from Jack Mace here. You absolutely are not out of this thing until you're off turn 4 coming to the checkered flag.
Yeah, and that goes for anybody in the field. I mean, I know you hear us talk about guys in the top 10, guys in the top 15, in a better spot, but one big wreck can shuffle up everything, and we're not at the point where we're going to be heading into that green-white checker yet, so we still have some laps to work with. I think the key here, especially if you're a guy like Paul Hemus or the 54 of Trevor Huff, you've kind of had the opportunity to see both sides of this restart. High side, low side, they've been working together really well, but even so, they've just struggled to get that bottom going enough to actually make any progress. Now, the Jack Shack teammates did get broken up a little bit. Curious to see, do they split Larry McDonald right out of the gate, or do they try to work with that 80 car? Depending on that outcome, may heavily determine what happens to this bottom line. Either way, though, for the guys that are outside the top 15, they are going to get aggressive. Adam Garza involved in the first caution of the night. Well, guess what? Here he is back inside the top 10. He's got an opportunity. Multiple cars inside the top 12 right now, even some of them with damage. Still fighting to try to transfer into the LCQs, but at the end of the day, Dawson, everybody up front wanting to get inside the top 3 and advance straight through to the feature.
If it wasn't crunch time before, it certainly is now. Buckle up, folks. If you watch the end of Heat 1, you know what we're about to see at the end of this one. 9 laps to go as the field works back to the Zimrat Market restart zone, green flag, and away goes Larry Mack. McDonald with a good restart outside. The 2 Jack Shack teammates go with him for now. Huff, Polimus lead the bottom, then a big gap back to Francis. Further back, Boniface jumps up. That's right behind Taylor Peacock. That was 6th in line. Garza is the 4th car outside. I would not be surprised to see Polimus jump up. Garza's going to fill the gap before he can. Will Garza be the first car to look 3 wide here off 2? No, he will stay in line. Everything simplified here off turn 2. No split quite yet from the Flanagan or Matthew David Wood machines.
Went out back. Big checkup for the 55. Looked like a couple of cars there had to dive to the inside. One of those may have been either the 97 or the 51. I think it was actually the 97 machine. But, Dawson, you look back at that restart and, well, they got the restart they needed for the front 2. The problem was the inside. No help from the 3rd spot out on back, and everybody sees that, bails out. And all of a sudden, we are right back to the high side being dominant. But how about it? Larry McDonald continues to lead here at Talladega. Just 8 laps to go. And here we go. 3rd lane starting to get aggressive as they fan out. Further back, about 5 to 6 cars deep pushing. Now it's going to be 7. All of a sudden, everybody wants to go to the high side. The man that's going to lead it, the 84 of Justin Melikar, the Jack Shack, trying to get back to the point here at Talladega.
And the Jack Shack cars up front just split Larry Mack. McDonald down at the bottom, tried to cover Trevor Huff. Huff says no, sir, and jumps to the middle. And for Larry Mack, now he'll have to go to the help of Matthew Francis on the bottom. He'll get Trevor Huff here to turn 3. They'll be able to try to tandem up and work that bottom back forward as the 2 Jack Shack teammates go out back. Oh, man, contact Peacock and Melikar. That was 5 rows deep in the field as Melikar tried to jump around the right rear of the purple, gray, and black 81, 4th in line. He'll get him right here in the tri-oval. But will Boniface go with him, or will Boniface stay middle? Answer, he'll go with Melikar. They'll get to Garza. Does Garza cover this into one? You bet he does. The veteran Adam Garza covers Melikar, who almost turns Garza up the banking of one, and he's going 4 wide.
Oh, man, and you knew the Jack Shack teammates would jump down to give a little bit of drive to their teammate Garza. Tried to make the block, couldn't make it stick, and now he finds himself as the odd man out. And just like that, who would have guessed the Jack Shack guys managed to get right back to 1, 2, 3 with just 6.5 laps to go. But the bottom's got a big run now. All of a sudden, here comes the 54 of Huff. He may be able to surge even as now here comes the side draft. Meanwhile, you've got Larry McDonald shooting up the middle 3 wide. He's trying to get clear.
Larry Mack through the center on Lyubimov's bumper. They're going to bring Wenzel with them. Payson Lindsay's in that line. Jonathan Cofield is too. Peacock Garza ended up being the odd man out. Is 4 wide out back. Kurt Quist throws it around Braden Walters. Polimas throws the block. That was 10 rows deep in the field. Lyubimov to the center. He'll take Wenzel with him and Brambilla and Davenport. 4 cars to the middle as they work back up the banking of turns 1 and 2. Lyubimov to the outside of Melikar. Remember that interaction earlier, and he'll turn left on the 84 here off turn 2. Boy, did those teammates almost get out of shape right there. Flanagan was halfway around. Lyubimov up to the middle. Cars getting in the wall. Garza, others getting into the fence. Everybody keeps it straight, and it's 5 to go when they get back to the line.
Yeah, and they're not going to be able to do this for another 5 laps. No way. They are 3 wide, door to door, just about all the way throughout the back half of the pack. Meanwhile, up front, you mentioned Lyubimov. He is not going to be too happy, I don't think, with any of the Jack Shack teammates.
Trouble, a
big
car
hit.
right in the middle of the field, and it's a big incident again. This one's Larry Mack. Other cars involved as well as they scramble through the tribal, and more crashing. Driscoll into Walters. It looks like Cofield's in this one as well, and again, a multi-car accident.
Garber goes through the grass. Larry McDonald, who we just saw leading just a few laps ago, he gets involved in this incident, and all of a sudden now, we start to get a little bit closer to the possibility of a green-white checkered here in heat race number 2.
Yes, it's up towards the front of the field, or rather towards the transfer positions. It actually starts around Larry McDonald. He may have tried to fill a gap here off turn 4. He gets into Cofield. Dylan Ast gets collected. Garber, Garza, Polimas is in this. Kurt Quist. There are multiple big names in this incident. And you see here off turn 4 as McDonald tries to get in line. You wonder if he's trying to get in line or if maybe they're just coming down a little bit. He's following the line. And McDonald comes down just a little bit. Boy, it almost looks like that car is a little bit loose off turn 4, which would be odd for Talladega. But, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Austin. That's sure what it looks like to me. And multiple cars slide through the grass and end up with a piece of this one.
Yeah, I agree, and I almost think that this is one of those situations, believe it or not, I have done this before, kind of what Larry's in, and, you know, you start to turn down, maybe the car is a little bit loose, but you overreact to it. Again, he is still on the banking, so there's a good chance if he holds the wheel straight, this car is going to correct itself. Now, I'm not sure if he thought maybe he was going to get down into the 58, got a little bit spooked by that, but once he tries to correct it, that just makes the car out of shape even more. He gets eventually down into the 58, and it's on from there. I mean, this is a couple of really big shots into the outside wall as they kind of get wedged together. Just nowhere to go for a lot of these cars. A couple of big hits. Larry McDonald, who we talked about, though, just at the front, Dawson, obviously that's got to feel pretty different in terms of how your car drives leading versus back in the pack, but that's definitely one of the more odd incidents that we've seen throughout the first couple of heat races tonight.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I think we'll see some more of these interesting looks throughout the week as well as, you know, guys get into compromising situations as the moves get more desperate. We'll see more crashes kind of like this one for Garber. Again, a bad night gone worse. A tough break for Polimas. Dylan Ast, I think, was about to get his lap back, but he gets collected in this incident. So for him, you know, it's, you know, unfortunately possibly going to be the end of his run in this race unless we get a restart with the potential for a green-white checkered. We'll look on board with Larry Mack here off turn 4 and watch the wheel inputs here. He's loose. That car gets out of shape. You see him come back to the right. He's trying to correct that car. It got out from under it. They're in turn 4. So the cars may be a little bit light when they unload off the banking. The track temp may also have something to do with that as it's been pretty hot so far in these first 2 heat races.
Yeah, and his tires were out with the track temp as hot as it is. We know that these cars can get a little bit slick as you do start to unload off of the banking, but that's really the first case that we have seen so far of somebody getting loose with this setup. So that'll be interesting to see if the rest of the drivers take note of it and how that affects maybe some of the pushing we've seen. I mean, up front, the Jack Shack drivers have been pushing about as hard as you possibly could, and we have not seen those cars get out of shape unless they've gotten a bad push from behind. But besides that, it has been all dominant so far from those 3 Jack Shack entries. And as we line back up here, 4th caution of the night, David Flanagan still going to be scored here as the race leader. You mentioned Lyubimov, we'll see how he's able to fare here, restarting in the second spot, which lane he'll choose. Matthew Wood, Taylor Peacock, Justin Melikar all inside the top 5. How about Nash Brambilla making the comeback after being involved in a couple of cautions tonight? Same situation for Gage Wenzel, Matthew Francis, and Matthew Boniface. I mean, all among these drivers that you said it earlier, Dawson, you get involved in a wreck, but it is never over until the checkered flag flies here at a track like Talladega, taking advantage of the fact that they are still in this race and making their way back to the front.
Well, a couple of others, 11th and 12th in the final 2 transfer spots. Mike Davenport's been in a couple of crashes tonight. He's 11th. And Alexander Kroenke, we saw him get shuffled out of line on one of the restarts. He's 12th. He's in the final spot that would transfer in. Payson Lindsay's not out of this. But Adam Garza is outside looking in here, and he's the car I would have emphasis on to do one of 2 things. Either he's going to choose the bottom right here, which, by the way, we are coming to the choose here at the line. He'll either choose the bottom here and take the track position, or he will be the first car making big moves out back of the field. A couple of other cars. Barrett Polimas is still out as of now. We mentioned Larry McDonald. Zach King as well continues to be outside looking in on what could be the final restart of the night. We are inside 5 laps to go. In fact, it will be a natural green-white checkered finish. This is not the sole overtime attempt. That is still in the back pocket if the field needs it. So if they get to the white flag, the race will be finished in regulation. If not, we do still have 1 overtime attempt left. So again, this is an organic green-white checkered. We are still well within the bounds of the race distance. In terms of the choose, first man to move was Justin Melikar. He'll take the inside of the front row alongside his Jack Shack teammate Matthew Francis made the move down there, along with Richard Driscoll. I believe, I thought that was the third car in line. It's not. It's Boniface, sorry. Alexander Kroenke's down there, and then Garza, who I mentioned would go from 15th to about 9th. He did. He goes to the inside of row 5. So for Adam Garza, he knows he has to get in that spot somehow. He'll take the bottom side of the racetrack and hope for the best. So a couple of cars in position now. You know, the way this race has kind of opened up, Austin, with 2 laps to go, we know how the heats in February could tend to end. These guys certainly now on pins and needles around the transfer spots, knowing that chaos at any point could change the end result.
It certainly could, and, you know, I'm looking at the second car lineup on the inside here, the 23 of Matthew Francis. He's got a pretty big dent right in the center of the nose of his Chevy, and I wonder how that car is going to fare. Maybe not too bad in the draft, but if he gets out in front, it could certainly be a different story. Alexander Kroenke, he's been fast so far all night. He's also been able to avoid most of the chaos, but, I mean, any of these guys that are, as you said, Dawson, around that final transfer spot, they're not going to be helping anybody, even if it's teammates or not. Everybody trying to get into either the last chance qualifiers or potentially the feature on Sunday.
Well, David Flanagan and Justin Melikar have been 2 of the dominant cars of this heat race. It's been a great drive for Melikar back to the inside of the front row. Is it the final time we'll visit the Simrat Market restart zone? Let's find out. Green flag, 2 laps to go. An organic green-white checkered. Lyubimov gets a push. And I'll be honest, I figured he would split around David Flanagan right there in turn 1, but for now he will push. Matthew Wood will push him. The bottom side trying to come to Melikar here in the form of Francis and Kroenke. They'll get there here off turn 2. Outside trying to go. That's Lyubimov on the push. Wood is 3rd, Peacock 4th, Boniface 5th. They're just not getting as much going as they have on previous restarts, though.
No, they certainly aren't, but I'll tell you what, the inside here looking really, really good right now. Still holding with that second row. The 33 of Lyubimov, though, trying to push the 31 of Flanagan back to the lead. The 16 of Wood just behind him. But watch out, that third lane trying to develop further back. A couple of cars trying to make it work, and the big question in the wild card here, who is going to go to that third lane? A couple more takers, all as they come to the white flag. 1 lap to go at Talladega.
Look at Adam Garza through the center in the blue and white 1. He goes 5 spots better in the middle and is all of a sudden on the bumper of Matthew Wood. Lyubimov gets split. Wood got to his right rear. Lyubimov to the bottom will have a big push from Boniface out back. Garza, they stack up topside with Garza and Brambilla. You got to be careful. Melikar to the center. All of a sudden fades just outside the top 8. Down the back straightaway for the final time. Melikar continues to try to work back in, but it's all David Flanagan up front. Garza forward to 3rd. Where did he come from? Off turn 4 to be the mad scramble. Garza would be the man I would expect to move, and there he goes. Garza to the inside. Pushed by Lyubimov. Trouble. Brambilla turned out of the transfer spots. It's carnage out back of the leaders. We'll have to sort that out through the tri-oval. Jack Shack teammates will race for it. David Flanagan wins heat number 2 in a dominant Jack Shack effort.
How about it, David Flanagan? I mean, I felt like with the way that race went, if one of the Jack Shack drivers didn't win it, it would have felt like a disappointing effort for them. But, I mean, no surprise, right? Another one of the drivers coming into this race that he probably would have been top 3, top 5 favorites to win it. He goes out, gets the job done, started in 9th, finishes in 1st. But, man, Adam Garza, talked about him being a favorite, but the work that he had to do just over those last 2 laps to get himself in position, phenomenal run. And then Matthew Wood makes it 2 of the Jack Shack drivers able to finish inside of the top 3.
So 2 of the 3 of their cars will finish on the podium and advance right to Sunday. So keep that in mind as we go forward throughout this week of racing. 2 of their cars already advanced. Melicar will go to the LCQs on Saturday. So a perfect 3 for 3 in terms of at least racing another day. But the man doing the donuts is David Flanagan. This style of racing suits not only their team, but Flanagan so well in terms of the way he likes to control lanes and blocking. Well, in the celebration here, he's going to get a piece of the inside wall, but I think the saying goes he's just getting a little bit of the good out of it as he gets the inside wall here as a heat winner in Heat 2.
I'm sure he's looking forward to, obviously, the payday, taking home $60 here from winning this heat, but also that he will get to join a couple of the other drivers from Heat 1 and not have to worry about racing through any of the chaos that we'll see coming up this weekend in the LCQs. He can focus all of his efforts now onto Sunday, the SummerSlam 499. That would be the Jack Shack's first opportunity at winning a special event. I know that Malik Ray has been running with those boys recently, but I think for Flanagan, if he could somehow find a way to go double it up and get that win in the SummerSlam 499, that would probably be one of the biggest wins in the Jack Shack's history here on the sim.
Got to think it's a morale victory for the team, too, to get 2 of the top 3 spots and put a couple of cars in the feature early in this event. So for Flanagan, it's a big win, but for the team as a whole to have that kind of performance, that was a big-time statement from their group with a number of their cars still to run throughout the week. We'll go now into the results from heat race number 2. Again, this is completely unofficial at this point, although we are being told that at least the top 9 are official. For now, we will assume that back to 9th spot is set. From there, it could get very, very interesting, so we'll await a race control decision potentially there. David Flanagan, that win is official for him in a dominant performance tonight for the Jack Shack. Adam Garza from 15th to 2nd on the final restart via the choose, and then via just a couple of huge moves through the center for Garza. That is a heck of a drive for him. He'll race in yet another crown jewel. He started, I want to say, all of them for the most part, or at least 3 of the 4 to this point. Garza will start another one on Sunday. Matthew David Wood will make his PGR crown jewel debut with a 3rd place finish as well. It's a good run for Nikita Lyubimov. I know he's not in the feature, but you got to take some things away for him. He'll race Saturday in the LCQs along with Justin Melicar for the Jack Shack. Matthew Boniface goes 6th. Strong run for him. Taylor Peacock recovers from a crash, as does Matthew Francis, 7th and 8th. As does Barrett Polimas. He'll race again. He'll race back-to-back crown jewels. He'll finish 9th. That, as of now, is the official spots that we know for sure. Unofficially, Mike Davenport comes home 10th for Team PGR, and he'll represent the PGR brand on Sunday. Kurt Quist in 11th, one of the newer money racing drivers, will finish in the 11th spot unofficially. And you want to talk about a recovery drive? Brandon Broadfoot's right rear tire was not moving with about 6 laps to go, and unofficially, he finishes 12th there for the final transfer spot.
Yeah, heck of a run there for Broadfoot. I know he's got to be pretty pumped up about his chance at moving on after he races in the LCQs. That'll be coming up on Saturday. Brent Garber, first man out unofficially, but again, if anything changes, he could get bumped up into that last transfer position. Payson Lindsay finishes in the 14th spot here tonight. Zachary King, man, just didn't seem like the luck was on his side at all here tonight. Got caught up in multiple wrecks. Finishes in that 15th spot. It's going to be Misael Flores finishing the 16th spot. Alexander Kroenke in 17th. Frank Chavez in 18th with Shea Tarleton in 19th. And Gage Wenzel, last driver to round out the top 20.
A tough break tonight for Larry McDonald in car 80. He will not advance forward, but a heck of a run nonetheless, and can't imagine he'll be hanging his head after that one. Braden Walters, 22nd. Nash Rambilla, 23rd. Both cars involved in crashes on the last lap. Trevor Huff in 24th. Richard Driscoll in 25th. Dylan Ast in 26th. Tommy Janikowski, 27th. Jonathan Cofield in 28th. Wesley Street, 29th. And Hunter Izell finishes in 30th. Well, before we wrap things up for the night from Talladega Superspeedway, as we did in heat number 1, let's talk to the heat winner in heat race number 2. As part of a dominant effort for his team, it's the Jack Shack's David Flanagan that gets the victory here in heat 2, and he stands by with my partner, Austin Green.
Hey, David, this is Austin up in the booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Well, man, it's a win for you, and I would say what a way to start one of the heat races for the Jack Shack. You guys worked so good together. Was that the plan going into the heat, and how did you still manage to execute even when things started to get broken up there towards the end?
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, Justin did a hell of a job. I mean, he picked bottom there, and the bottom got a terrible restart. And the whole time he was just calling runs, and NDW was sticking with me. And, I mean, it was just incredible. I mean, I felt like that whole night we just controlled that race with some damn good drivers, and it was awesome. I mean, finally get the heat done, and I don't have to worry about anything else.
Yeah, obviously you get the win in this heat, $60, and you're guaranteed to move on to the feature on Sunday. The other thing I want to ask you about, David, first time on this setup, and of course you were one of the first heats. What did you think about it? Was it tricky, and is there any notes that you can take heading into the SummerSlam on Sunday?
Yeah, we've been running this setup all week, and these just races that Kenny's been throwing up, and Mike and Baker, and I've been having a hard time with it. And last night made some pretty terrible mistakes, but luckily just got all the bad luck out of the way and pulled it through.
Absolutely. Well, David, one more question here before we let you head out. Obviously, big win for you here in the heat. How important do you think teamwork's going to be going on to the feature on Sunday?
Yeah, obviously the more the merrier. I'm excited this year. I think, no doubt in my mind, someone from the Shack is bringing home that belt and the $2,000. This Trev Payton, this car in black was probably the best thing ever because, man, I felt like Dell. I mean, I was hot. I mean, I was an Iranian hypersonic missile, man. I mean, I was flying. I mean, it felt awesome. I just can't thank the Shack enough. I can't thank Trev enough, and y'all putting on the broadcast. I mean, it was awesome. Finally getting it done.
And awesome to watch as well. David, before we let you officially head out to get ready for the SummerSlam on Sunday, is there anyone you want to thank or shout out?
Yeah, of course, everybody at the Shack. No names listed. We're all one. We're all one team. Just love everyone over there and all my friends watching. Adam, see you soon. CPA brother, Trey, Jack, Bryce, Brady, all the big hitters. Love y'all. Thank you for the broadcast. I probably missed a friend, and they'll probably call me out when I'm done with this. But yeah, thanks for the broadcast, Dawson, Austin. Y'all are gonna do a great job this week. And thanks for Mike and Baker for putting this on.
And David, we appreciate you talking to us again. Congrats on the Heat 2 win. We will see you back for the 2026 SummerSlam 499 here on Sunday.
Yep, thanks, guys.
The winner of Heat 2 is David Flanagan, and you heard him start to talk about teamwork there. Again, I agree with him. I think teamwork is going to be everything in that race come Sunday. We'll start to try to wrap things up here tonight from heat race number 2, and really from the first 2 heat races as a whole. And what a night it was. And I feel like opening night of the last few of these marquee events, Austin, has been, kind of a big moment in setting the tone for the week. I talked about it so much in February of heats 1 and 2, setting the tone for the rest of the drivers still to come this week. And I think tonight we saw a little bit of everything. Both heats kind of had a calm start to them, kind of similar to February in a way. Drivers got acclimated to one another. But once it opened up, this custom setup, I think, at least in the heat races, and we'll see how it translates later in the week, but at least in the heat races, has pretty much hit the nail on the head of making this car racy like it used to be, but not kind of going over the top, creating overboard runs that cause a bunch of multi-car accidents. I think this setup, so far, at least in the first 2 races that we've seen, has been outstanding in terms of the racing that it can produce.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, one thing I'm looking forward to seeing is how the setup runs once we go 499 miles, because obviously with the heat races, we saw a couple of handling issues, even on runs that were only, say, 15, 20 laps. So once we get to these runs where we're going 40 to 45 laps, curious to see how handling is going to fall off. I think it's going to make for some great racing. And if we get an overtime shootout, well, even in the short run, we know the setup's got speed there, but touching on the other point you made, Dawson, I always loved being one of the drivers in the early heat races because you know what's ahead and you don't have to sit around and wait. The nerves are able to kind of die down a little bit sooner. For David Flanagan and then, of course, Smecker, I think those two are in a great position. I wouldn't be shocked if one of them potentially tries to dethrone
favorites in the process and add new names to the list of drivers that could be competitive and be up front when the checkered flag is flying on Sunday afternoon. Of course, we know who the defending winner is. We know who some of the favorites are. But you know, as these heats continue on and as things continue to mold into the SummerSlam 499, we're going to see new drivers emerge tonight. Sprecher certainly is in that group. David Flanagan's now in that group. I'd argue all three of those Jack Shack cars made pretty good statements for why not only that team, but those three cars will be in contention come Sunday. A lot of drivers are moving on and a lot of drivers are going home, and it's time to now start to wrap things up and look towards tomorrow here from Talladega. Let's tell you how that's going to work really quickly. It is an earlier start time tomorrow. A reminder, we will have 3 heat races tomorrow rather than just 2 heats, 3, 4, and 5. And as such, the broadcast will go live sometime around 7:45 to 7:50 on the East Coast rather than around 8:45 tonight. Again, it's an hour earlier tomorrow night, but it's right back here on PGR eSports. The next 3 heat races in the SummerSlam 499 and some big names to come tomorrow night in the middle heats of this event. Can't wait for that one. It will be a fun one, and I can't wait to see where this event takes us next. It was a roller coaster last year, and we're sure to have another one here this year around in 2026. I want to thank all of our sponsors very quickly here for both heats, as well as our title sponsors. First off, of course, that towing company and Chris Blanchard for their support, as well as Chris Carter Racing and the Flying Aces, as well as our 2 heat sponsors tonight, both James Waring Racing and then Colorectal Cancer Awareness in honor of Jay Smart here for their sponsorships of heats 1 and 2. An exciting night of racing leads us perfectly into the rest of the week. It's SummerSlam season, folks. It's finally come, and we are finally off and running in the biggest sim racing event of the summer. Thank you so much for your attendance and participation in tonight's broadcast. We hope to see you back throughout the rest of the week, starting tomorrow at 7:45 with heats 3, 4, and 5. For my entire broadcast team tonight, our pit reporter Tyler Vickery, and my co-host and our producer tonight, Austin Green, running double duty. My name is Dawson Weiss. Thank you again so much for watching this production of PGR Esports and the SummerSlam 499. We'll see you back tomorrow night from Talladega. Good night.